for all to see. The signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away. Like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. The Ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.
There he is. There's the doctor.
No worries.
Well, used to be doctor. There we go. Good to see you, my friend. Episode 86. Cutting it fine.
86.
School holidays and full-time work and all that sort of jazz. We just made it in time.
Oh, tell me about it.
A bit tardy today.
Tell me about
it. Anyway, there you go. There we go. We're here anyway. We're here. We didn't have to keep people waiting for too long. And it looks like it's all tracking okay on all the platforms, but we'll wait for some of those little comments to come in to see whether people are actually, being summer and all, Bruce, are actually seeing some summer weather here in Adelaide for the last couple of days. And seeing it's still nice and sunny out there, it'll be interesting to see whether people jump on it this time of day. But whoever we get, and whoever we don't, we don't. And people can always catch up on the Substack as it's re-uploaded on there, and you can find it on the Rumbles afterwards and all that. So Facebook, I know, deletes them after the live streams after a little while. So, but there we go.
Yep, summer's certainly here, although it's only been a couple of days worth here in Western Vic. And I've just been finishing off my fire prep. So I've spent much of the last few days slashing under my fence lines. So remember last week we talked about, cross-subsidising bad risks in insurance? Well, I don't insure my house anymore, and I don't insure my fences and all that sort of stuff because I don't want to have arguments with insurers about what is and isn't covered. So I take that risk on myself, and I've therefore got a powerful incentive to manage that risk. So each year I slash 3, 4, 5 rows in around every fence line, both sides, using the tractor. And then I have to go around because there's always a little narrow strip right under the fence that you can't get the slasher into. So I've got this sort of, imagine a whippersnipper on wheels.
Okay.
So I've been pushing that round so I can just dive under the fence lines and, chop off, because grass in my paddocks here is up to 5 feet high. It's been a pretty good growing year. And so I've nearly finished chopping all that off. And the idea is if I get a fire run through, a couple of things. One is I've got fire breaks in every paddock. So if I do get a fire, there's an anchor line that ground crews can work from, or I can work from if it's a small fire, or an aircraft can drop along. And if a fire does run through when I'm not here or nobody's fighting it, because I'll be on a truck somewhere else, obviously, I'm hoping that because there's little fuel, in the 3, 4, 5 widths of the slasher, each side of the fence lines, that a fire may be able to run through my fence lines without destroying them. If it's 5 or 6 foot high in grass, it's just going to catch the posts and melt all the wires. But if I reduce the fuel around the fence lines, then I hope that a fire could run through and at least not destroy the fence posts themselves, because that's the main work. So there we go.
Well, there you go. Thank you for filling us in on that little bit of trivia. I've got this picture in my mind of this massive whippersnipper going underneath the fence line. And it's like this gadget that you've developed, or is it something you can buy or you developed it?
I bought it. It's from China, like everything, but it's done several seasons now. So imagine a lawnmower, but instead of having those whirling blades under it, then it's got this little thing sticking out the front, which has got a whippersnipper head on it. So the string zips around, but you don't have to carry it on your back. I get the saw back, just pushing the thing. It's going to take me 6 or 8 hours to go around all the fence lines. But hey, I'm the beneficiary. I'm managing my own risk, so I don't begrudge it. I do it every year.
Yeah, good on you. Well, you know the risks being in that that industry and fighting the bloody things and knowing what causes it to burn. You know, all that sort of stuff. You know, like rules. You know, green tape that prevents people. You know, tidying up roadways and undergrowth, dry undergrowth in forests and bushland, and because of all these green rules and that.
And I want to make it perfectly clear, this is all compliance. I've got all the appropriate sort of Aboriginal heritage control permits and all that sort of stuff. And I'm an expert there anyway, because I'm a disabled Aboriginal Indigenous veteran. So ticking all the boxes. Trans,
of course. Yeah, that's right. You get cheaper insurance now too. Yeah. No, you get better.
That's going to get a redux this week. There's been, our friend Sam Bamford's. Isn't it sad, really, that we cover a story and then in the next week some of the other podcasters pick it up, and they always do a far better job covering it. So Sam Bamford's covered it. I'm thinking of Topher Field. Any story that we talk about, when he talks about it, it's like 100 times better to listen to than what we do. But hey,
I don't know, mate. We've still got people joining us. They like the extended explanation of your thinking into it. And as I said before, there's a place for every commentator. And yes, they are very grabby and very catchy. But you unpack it really well with with your deep thinking and critical thinking. And we've got people joining us, that continue to say that they love coming on a Monday to listen to what we've got to say. So that, while that's happening, we'll just keep cracking along the best way we can, mate.
Yep, good too.
Yeah. Anyway, let's do this.
You set?
I am set. Just a couple of quickie little things. Oh, yeah, I like your little graphic. Geez, you're getting a bit clever at this sort of stuff. You won't have any need for me. You won't have a need for me at all, mate. Soon you'll just be able to do everything yourself. That's cute. I like that. A little caption there. What are you going to do that? Yeah, you did. I like that. That's cute. Anyway, yeah, go.
Let me just highlight this comment, because that comes from my daughter. I recognise that handle there.
Hales. Yep.
And big credit to her, because about half the show has come from tips that she sent me during the week.
I like this. She wants her Christmas presents.
I don't do Christmas presents, remember. They're for children, not for adults.
There you go. You're adulting now, Hales. You're adulting. So there you go. There you go. All right. Good job. And so today I'm going to be talking about the smart meter rollout. Now, I was going to show this web page because I come up, I had the web page organized, but for some reason they must be updating, or maybe they're getting a lot of hits because it's kind of doing its rounds. I know Malcolm Roberts is talking about it, but this is from the Energy and Water Ombudsman in New South Wales. So smart meter rollout from 1 December 2025, the national smart meter rollout will accelerate with the goal of all homes and small businesses having a smart meter by 2030. Bruce, what is it about 2030? Is it the final apocalypse? The World Economic Forum and all these other think tanks and our government and the catastrophizers in the climate all keep pointing at 2030. Should we set our clocks to say that is 2030 another Bill Gates year 2000 bug for Microsoft? Everybody has to update their Microsoft software. That's another. Oh, you know what? I think that's another one of Bill Gates's massive scams on humanity, is making people spend a ton of money on upgrading this computer and software in the year 2000, and nothing happened. And that was another big scam from him, I reckon.
And I remember that. Remember the millennial bug, which is what you're talking about, and I remember it because we were all seriously worried, that everything would happen, the city would go black. And in fact, at the time, I was a member of the Country Fire Service in South Australia, and we actually had plans to send strike teams of trucks from the Adelaide Hills, where I was, down into the city of Adelaide to manage all the disasters that were going to happen. And we all sat there and nothing happened.
So it's a bit like Al Gore and all those other Grifton Muppets that been catastrophizing climate change for 40 plus years and making all these predictions, and our own little Flannery in that here. So, I mean, this is the whole thing, isn't it? This their mouthpiece, the Muppet mouthpiece, the media, and them just continue to fearmonger and all these things, and people could just keep falling for it. And that Y2K bug was a classic example. But this agenda, because it was Agenda 2021, now it's Agenda 2030. These people just keep clutching at straws, don't they, to try and bloody get us all in. But anyway, so I just thought I'd make people. Yeah, go. You were going to say something.
Here's the big tip for all of you end of the world people: never put a date on it, because we've seen this multiple times. All these doomsday cults, the world's going to end next Friday at 2:00, and lo and behold, it doesn't happen. So what they then say is, yeah, sorry, we've just had a look at the numbers. It's actually going to be the Friday after at 2:00. And then that doesn't happen. So they learn and they go, yeah, what's coming soon? We'll let you know. And 2020 is turned into 2030. It's going to turn into 2050 because all their disasters aren't going to happen. All their targets aren't going to be met. The net zero thing, net zero by 2030, it'll be 2040, it'll be 2050. It'll be soon, but we can't tell you when eventually.
Yeah. Exactly right. It's like all the predictors of Jesus's return. All these people that get on there and say, that's it. The end of the rapture's coming, end of days. Jesus is coming, and then they have to bloody suck it up and turn up the next day and go, maybe we got a couple of calculations wrong and all this sort of stuff. It's just a mess. Yeah. Jesus. No one knows the hour and the time that he'll return. Only the Master, God, and Him, and that's it. And but all you people that keep claiming this is the hour and this is the day, it's the same as these grifters, these climate change grifters, these Y2K grifters, all these grifters, they're all the same. But anyway, there you go. A little rant on that. So the smart meter rollout. So what I thought, I'd just quickly share a couple of little things in regards to that. So national seniors have actually put something in, raising some concerns that, that they had in regards to, obviously elderly people, and they're pushing, accelerated rollouts. So we're talking Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia, ACT, they're all pushing this accelerated rollout. And the concern is, obviously electricity tariffs is one thing. In a worryingly a glimpse into the smart meter future for other states and territories, the New South Wales Power and Water Watchdog has reported a major increase in complaints about sudden and unexplained changes to people's electricity tariffs. So this is something to worry about. Then I thought I'd scroll down a little bit more, a bit further. To this part here. So smart digital electricity meters that measure and records electricity used at least every 30 minutes. The electricity data can be accessed remotely, so meter readers will no longer need to enter your property to read meters. So, they sell it as ease and convenience, like they do with everything else, Bruce. It's all about ease and convenience, right? But I just wanted to read a little bit of a story from someone, just this little quick one, just so it hits home for people. But this is a story that the national seniors have reported. Mike complained his energy retailer billed him $6,000 for electricity over 10 months. He contacted his energy retailer to discuss his high bills and was offered a $200 credit of to reduce the amount owing of $6K. Thanks to that, Mike asked the retailer to review the billing, which was found to be correct and in line with the meter data. However, the retailer's mobile app showed the customer had consumed 931 kilowatts in one day, which he said would have been impossible. The Energy and Water Ombudsman of New South Wales, EWON, contacted the energy retailer to request further information. They provided copies of Mike's bills and the meter data provided by the MSP. That's the meter provider, and said that its billing review was ongoing as it was waiting on the MSP to check the meter data. Our initial review of the records indicated that Mike's billing for 3 months didn't align with the data provided by the MSP. The retailer also provided copies of notes showing they had requested a meter investigation or accuracy test, but no action had been taken. EWON requested further information to clarify the billing had been appropriately reviewed. 2 months later, the retailer still had no response from the MSP to review the original meter data, despite the retailer escalating the matter with the MSP multiple times. The retailer agreed to make a request that the accuracy of the customer's meter is tested. A month later, the MSP had confirmed verbally that the customer's electricity meter passed an accuracy test, although the retailer was still waiting on the meter test report. The retailer acknowledged that over a 5-month period, it had failed to obtain adequate information from its MSP to complete a billing review, including verification that meter data originally used to the bill the customer was valid, a report confirming that the meter passed an accuracy test. Get this, the retailer offered to resolve the complaint by offering to apply a credit of $754 relating to pay on time discounts the customer missed while the complaint was investigated, and Bruce, a goodwill credit of $3,075 to his electricity account. Where do you think they got that figure of $3,000 for a goodwill credit there, Bruce? Do you think like that $6,000 initial bill, you think the $6,000 might have been quite wrong there, Bruce? This is what people have got to look forward to and get used to. And that's just the billing side of things. Let's not even start down the track of being able to turn off your power at a whim, by being a bad citizen and going over your, individual carbon credits into the future, Bruce. This is just a real thing to worry about for every Australians. But yet they're pushing ahead with it, mate. By 1st of December, that's it. They're going ahead.
And let me put those numbers in context. You said he'd used 980 kilowatt hours in a single day.
931.
Okay. A typical household in Australia uses between 15 and 20 kilowatt hours in a day. So they're saying that he used, even if it was 20, they're saying that he used 50 times as much electricity as the average house. I can't even see how that'd be possible if you ran absolutely everything flat out. And this, by the way, is another reason why I don't allow direct debits of my electricity bill to the retailer, AGL in my case. I don't give them access to my account. So every month they send me a bill and I have to manually pay it, which is a pain, but it protects me against this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that in disputes, and the more and more these disputes happen, they actually have access remotely to turn off your electricity in your meter. They don't have to send a guy or girl around to your meter box, right? They just go, oh yeah, well, you're citizen X, you're the, you're the bad person that's, gone over your carbon credits. You will flick the switch on you, brother. Take that. So anyway,
and that's another reason why I had the electrician come round and wire my house with a secondary circuit with a changeover switch. So I can turn the street off and run my house on a generator for as long as I've got fuel. And trust me, I've stored a little bit. Mainly for outages, having been through 2 3-day blacks in South Australia, but also for things like that. I've certainly had relatives or friends in other states say, do you remember the big storms in northern New South Wales? They said, well, we had no power for 3 weeks. So that sort of thing can happen even without, malicious government intervention. So I would recommend that people consider getting a manual changeover switch. So that means you just go out and turn the switch in your meter box and then you start your generator and you can run at least some of your house. You can't run everything, nor would you want to, but you can get some lights and some power and you're doing much better than everyone else in that circumstance. Although I warn you, of course, that they'll ban home generators because that, again, that's a independence thing and we can't have that, can we?
No, this is exactly right. No, exactly. And there is a couple of websites. If people want to follow it up, and for some reason there's some issues with my with the way that my websites are showing at the moment. But anyway, I'm going to share this in a minute because I did try and what's happened now? See, it's gone all silly on me. Plain silly buggers. Let me share screen again. All right, let's try that one. There we go. All right, so this is it's a smart meter harm. So that's a website. If people want to look it up yourself, it's not displaying properly, but it's called smartmeterharm.org. If you want to go there and type in the search field, type in Australia, they'll have a couple of articles purely relating to Australia. But there is also an Australian equivalent of Stop Smart Meters Australia. If people want to follow up stuff that's happening in there, become part of a group, or just to keep yourself informed on there. So that's smart in regards to smart meters. So definitely recommend people actually following this stuff up, because it's coming. It's a concern. And all good to go. So I've just got some distractions here. Anyway, that's the beauty of school holidays, brother. But anyway,
What is it?
One last thing.
Cats?
Yeah. Just one last story before I move over to your stuff. This story here. Radical Acon exposed. Now I shared this today. This is the ABC. So Acon is a trans rights activist kind of organisation, and they equate it to a similar program that they have in the UK as well, and I know America had some sort of system the same. So what it does, it actually gives businesses credits, and it puts them on a higher rating. The more DEI they are, or the more woke they are to LGBT plus, trans sort of ideology stuff. And if you're really, really good, you'll get a higher rating. Now, apparently, the ABC spent heaps of resources and time to get a higher rating, just so they could be put on like a platinum list through Acon. So that's a bit of a story there that was on in the Australian. Now, obviously, I'm not subscribed to the Australians behind a paywall. There's some others that you can type it into. You can type it into. I think if you find the URL, type it into what's it called, the Wayback Machine, and you might be able to get it, and paywall thing. But needless to say, it's just another reason for the ABC to be defunded, as far as I'm concerned. And because they've spent a lot of money, time, staff, efforts, they've even got radio shows created for it, TV programs created for it, for them to be able to get this beautiful, gold star rating of being, on Acon's preferred, propaganda media non-fourth estate arm. So there you go. I just thought I'd share that for people to look into a bit further. It's doing its rounds in the media, in case people haven't come across that yet.
And I knew even before you said it, when you said, and this comes from, my mind straight away said Britain, because they're ahead of us in the woke and green game, and that gives us an advanced view of where Albo's taking this country. And on a related topic, I ordered a Christmas present, not for you, Heather, from Amazon a few days ago. And basically, it was a package that would have been about the size of maybe 3 shoe boxes put together. And that would have been the package. It arrived in a massive carton from Amazon. And as I went to open it, you could read Amazon celebrates DEI. Click on this link to find out more about it. No, Amazon, I don't want you DEIing. I want you to deliver my shit as quickly as possible. I don't want you doing anything else as a customer. Okay?
Yeah. You have one job, deliver my parcel.
The other thing it said on this massive box, I mean, the box was like half the size of a bar fridge, so the volume of the box was about 4 times the size of the parcel that was in it. And also printed next to this DEI stuff was, we are now using 50% less packaging. Excuse me. So normally that would have come in a box the size of a full fridge. Is that what you're telling me? But you cut it down. And here's the thing. When I opened it up, there was no packing in it. There was just the thing that I ordered rattling around in a box that was 4 times as big as it needed to be.
A DEI box.
DEI tax, I think you'd call that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's like a DEI tax, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, let's have I'll just see if I can bring. So there was, the article was, that's it there. It's like archive today, web capture there. It was in there. But anybody's following me on Facebook, I've put it up on my stories as well, how the ABC, and it's a full write-up. It's actually quite a big write-up about it all, and I think people will be shocked when they see the type of stuff that's been uncovered there. But you're right, it's happening all around the world, but even and I did write up some things in regards to America. It's like Disney and other places. They were awarded, and I forget the name of the activist organization that was scoring companies like Disney and others on their DEI and the LGBT kind of profile. The more they pushed it, the bigger they were in the profile with that. The higher up, the more points they would get. So if people haven't woken up yet to see that this is a driven agenda, then you keep putting your head in the sand, because this agenda, the trans agenda and the DEI, is deliberately driven by very wealthy people who want to undermine traditional values, the family and society, and conservative nations, Western nations that were kind of built on a Judeo-Christian principle, and that's what their design is. That's what they're looking to do, and making me apologise for that comment.
And let's dive back in history a bit. When you and I were kids, there was at most 4 television channels, 2, 7, 9 and 10. Same as some of the blood factors that I used to remember in medicine, so that was useful. The vitamin K dependent factors were 2, 7, 9 and 10, so it was easy to remember. So back in the day, you had at most 4 options. In fact, and in country areas, you often didn't have those 4 options. So the intent of the ABC for best part of 100 years was to provide a single trusted source of news and information to everybody in Australia. Fast forward to now, there must be 100 channels you can get on your TV if you want to flick through. And TV's irrelevant anyway, because you can get an unlimited amount online. And that's what I do. I mean, I hardly watch TV anymore, apart from the news that I watch in the morning and the evening, just to get a handle on what the current propaganda is. But I never watch any of the other programming, because it's degenerated into these stupid competitive artificial time pressure, competition cooking, competition house building, my gay renovation kitchen in the jungle at first sight out of here. That's what it is. So there's nothing for me on TV anymore. And yet my pocket is picked every year for the ABC. And as part of the ABC's charter, because they're a national asset, they had to be impartial. It's in their charter. Hands up anybody who thinks they still do that. Does anybody think they're even slightly impartial these days?
Well, no. I don't think there'll be many people.
Why is my pocket being picked for that sort of BS? It's wrong.
Yep.
Shut it down.
Yep.
Fire all the staff, burn the buildings down, throw salt on the remnants, and give me back my $2 a day or whatever they claim they're taking for it.
Yeah, some people are spending an absolute fortune. I think it's like $15 for you've got Amazon, $15 for Netflix, because they've all done this little scam where you won't have, some people haven't got rights to certain movies and shows, and others have. So and they put all the good ones on different of these platforms. So you could have anybody spending up to $100 a month on different subscriptions for different things, because they just want to watch these bloody shows and on different channels. It's all planned out. And most of them are probably owned by the same, you follow the money back, they're probably all owned by the same bloody shareholders and, people that have stakes in it, your normal BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street mob, you know what I mean? So, but anyway, that's it.
Here's the point. You get the choice. If you want to pay $30 a month for Netflix, that's on you. I'm paying, I don't know what the figure is, even if it's $2 a day, that's $15 a week for the ABC that I never watch.
Yeah,
I'm being forced to buy a product that I have no interest in by the government.
Yep.
Now I'm getting the impression that you're done.
Yeah, mate, all good. And Hayley reckons that she's still a teenager.
Yeah, that's an in-joke. We won't go into that.
Righto.
Now, let me pick up just on a few comments here. So Maria says they were hoping that wind turbine fires would burn the lot down. Interestingly, Maria, there's at least one wind turbine fire a year in Australia. And about 8 months ago, I spent all night at the Victorian example, which was a wind turbine fire in just out of Great Western in a farm called Bulgana. And so we got called out from a fatal road crash. We had a pretty bad day, been all day at this nasty fatal crash, and then we got called out to this wind farm. And the turbines are massive. They're like more than 100 metres from the ground up to the hub. And it was burning, and it was burning in the traditional way. One of the blades had burnt out. It was showering burning oil down the shaft and off it. And it was too dangerous to approach because, it was dropping burning stuff. And, the average large wind turbine blade is 10 or 15 tonnes. So you can't go under it. Wind turbines are generally built on high windy places, and it was very high and windy. And all we could do is sit and watch it all night. There's nothing we could do about it. The only value we were going to add is that if it escaped, maybe we could stop it, running for miles. Although, like I say, wind turbines are built on high pieces of ground, often rocky and often hard to get to. So fortunately, it didn't spread. But as I drive up and down the road and I look across about 10 kilometres away, I can still see the remnants of that, with the top blade burnt off and the other two hanging down. It's still sitting there 8 months later. So, yep, wind turbines fire. Gail's going to get a gazump strike there because I'm going to talk about a grass fire in a solar farm in this. So, yes, and what's this one of Maria, because that might be related. Yep, this again relates to the solar farm fires. And I think, sorry, I've got to go back to Gail. I'm going to double gazump strike Gail because we have a segment called Word Meanings Matter, and there's no such thing as a solar farm, same as there's no such thing as a wind farm. There are wind factories and solar factories. They are industrial sites with large amounts of chemicals and physical electrical risks on them. They're not farms, they're factories.
Yep, exactly. There you go. Got a couple of gazumpers there. I saw that solar story. I thought, oh yeah, Bruce is definitely going to pick up on that.
Yeah, so sorry. It's a new feature on the show. We're going to do gazump strikes against the audience now.
Usually it's me that's getting them, so it's okay. Someone else is getting caught out.
You may yet.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah. And just before we get on to stuff, see, the Libs are still bloody in a terrible place here in South Australia. That Tazi has obviously resigned on Friday, giving family reasons and wanting to focus on his electorate. And Ashton Hearn is now, that's the third female Liberal leader now for the Liberals. They think they can turn their things around. So it'll be interesting to see what Ashton thinks she can bring to the table with that free fall in South Australia here against Peter Malinauskas.
And they're all known as hospital passes. Hospital pass in football is when you pass off the football to the guy next to you who's got three people about to bulldoze it. So same. They've elected a female leader for the federal Libs. They've elected a female Liberal leader for the Liberals in Victoria, and now looks like one for South Australia. And they're all going to get smashed because in each state and federally, the previous wins were so massive that there is no way any of those are going to lose next time to the Liberals. So every single one of those leaders is going to get smashed next time. And they deserve to, because all of those so-called Liberal leaders, they're just nothing but Labor light leaders. They haven't learnt that if people want Labor, they'll vote Labor. They won't vote Labor light. So the only thing you can do is give the majority of the population an alternative. So if you come out with a genuine Freedom Party that says, we hear you on mass immigration, we hear you on government overspending, we hear you on medical tyranny, etc., try running on that instead of running on, well, we're going to be like, Labor, but not as much.
That's right. Yep, I totally agree. And as I've said, there's no way in the world that Liberal will get a look in if they don't start pushing back on the international players that are affecting our nation. the think tanks, the lobby groups, all these people that influence the day-to-day running of our nation. And if Liberals can't be the ones that stand up against the socialist Marxist ideologues of the Greens and Labor, then it's going to need other parties like, One Nation obviously is polling strongly, is 18% nationally, is polling pretty strong. I know that Mark Aldridge has got United Voice Australia is really drumming up quite a bit. So there's going to be alternatives. It'll just be dependent on how many of the Liberal members decide that they're going to jump off the ship, off the sinking Titanic, and actually put their weight behind some of these parties, or whether they'll just aimlessly continue to follow a party that's full of moderates, like I said, Labor light, and continue to be irrelevant in the public sphere. But anyway, time will tell.
I've got one thing I do hope: if the South Australian Liberals get wiped out, and it sounds like it, then I've got some hope that my old friend of the show, Josh Teague, the former Attorney General, let's hope he gets shown the door as well. And that would complete his fall from grace from the second most powerful Liberal in the party, the Attorney General, down to what he is currently now, is just a backbencher in the shadow government. So let's hope that he loses his seat as well, and that'll give me some consolation.
I was thinking about that over the couple of days over the weekend, talking about, thinking about what's going on with the Liberals and looking who's still in there during the COVID era. And I thought, that he was definitely a COVID tyrant. Obviously, as we remember, and we've done on our shows, he sent the cops around to you because you were challenging him with your knowledge and experience as being a doctor at the time still, about what was happening during COVID. And he took offence to the fact that you kind of wanted to continue to peacefully attend his office, and decided to send the police around. So he used his power as Attorney General, as a senior Liberal, and did that. So it'll just be interesting whether people on our side that have been following this tyranny will actually show him the door and see what happens. Maybe give someone else a go. Mr. Teague.
Indeed. Fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm. So is this where we're up to, Bruce?
I think we're up to let's do this.
Let's go, brother.
And again, my daughter Heather actually pointed out the fact that you say that at the start of every show. So there we go.
I don't know. I didn't even realise this was one of those subconscious things.
You're going to think about it every time from now on, aren't you?
Well, now I've got that bloody yellow little, speech bubble right there. How can I forget, Bruce?
Well, might be something different next week. We'll see.
Yeah, Roger. Yeah.
Righto. So what are we doing this week? So in the Not Easy Being Green section, you won't believe this, we've got more failed green projects and we got more battery fires. Unbelievable, I know.
Who could have thunk it?
In the health section, we've got Ozempic for cats. We've got great news from the US, where their ACIP, American Committee on Immunization Practices, has recommended dropping the universal hepatitis B vaccine for newborns, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed in the media over the last 2 or 3 days, there's been quite a few stories about doctors' fees. Greedy doctors, specialists cost too much. There's going to be, a clamp down, etc. I'm going to perhaps give a different view on that, because I did work in private for a while. And even 20 years ago, when I worked in private, if I charged the government approved fee, also known as the scheduled fee, I made zero money because my costs completely consumed it. Mm-hmm. For example, a third of my billings went straight out to medical defence, so insurance, a third. Add on top of that the cost of running your practice, running billing, etc. So even 20 years ago, if I charged the government approved, the correct fee, the scheduled fee, I made zero money. And since then, the scheduled fee's obviously gone up at the government approved inflation rate, which, as we know, is fraudulent. And the health of the population's got sicker. So medicine, of course, has got more expensive. So if I was making no money at the scheduled fee 20 years ago, I would have to be charging a lot more than it now just to break even. And this is why, if you go to the GP where the scheduled fee might be, pick a number, $35, you'll get a bill for 80 or 90 because the scheduled fee is a government set fee that bears no relationship to reality. So sorry, people. It's not that the medical staff are ripping you off. It's the government is lying to you about what the real cost of those services are.
Yeah. Yep.
Righto, what else do we got? Diversity is strength. Finally, a council in New South Wales has said they've listened to the ratepayers and they're going to stop all the divisive welcome to country BS. They've said the ratepayers don't want it and it's divisive, so we're not going to do it. And that's great. Imagine a council listening to the ratepayers.
Imagine, rather than just acting on the whim of some sort of social DEI. And John and Edna Tate know all about that in the Adelaide Hills with the bloody cancellation of Australia Day ceremonies on Australia Day. And haven't they been big fighters in regards to that?
Didn't they get reinstated?
No, they're still working on it. Yeah, still. John's like a dog on a bone. He doesn't give up easily, John and Edna, so they're still on it.
Government overreach. Unbelievably, there wasn't a single story in that box this week, and that's amazing.
Wow. Really?
Zombie stories. We covered this in the past, but in the past there was this story that place X in the world was heating up twice as fast as the rest of the world, and we thoroughly debunked that. Well, they rolled that one out again this week. So apparently, part of America called the New England region, not our New South Wales one, but the New England region, which I think is sort of north of Washington. Apparently that's warming twice as fast as anywhere else as well. So we're going to revisit that. Mythbusters on the 84th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. They've been having various ceremonies, and apparently there's still 14 servicemen who are at Pearl Harbor still alive. So they must be all 100 or thereabouts. Anyway, we're going to look into the conspiracy side of Pearl Harbor because there's actually a lot of evidence that was what we call a MIHOP. Now, for people who haven't heard the terms, you've got LIHOPs and MIHOPs. So a LIHOP is a let it happen on purpose. So the government lets an attack happen because they're going to profit from the outcome. And you got MIHOPs, make it happen on purpose. And I'm going to show you some of the signs that indicate Pearl Harbor was a MIHOP. The Americans engineered it to happen. They knew it was happening. And then after it happened, they used it to their own purposes. And to finish out on the Uslam bird of ridiculosity, Sam Bamford, that fantastic podcaster from, I think, Adelaide. He revisits the old discounts for trannies story regarding car insurance.
Yeah, there was one I shared of his. I'm not sure if this is the same one, but he bloody goes off as well. So he does a beautiful tirade. Well done.
I don't know if it's the same one, but this one there's a few F-bombs dropped. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's the one that I was listening to. Though. So if you're a bit sensitive and don't like the F-bombs, if there will be a language warning before it's played.
Now, I don't believe in trigger warnings for anything. I think we're all adults, and A, we should be able to deal with that, and B, if we're not, then perhaps you shouldn't be here on the show.
I'll just leave now then, shall
I? Before we go on, is that a serious?
I mean, the under 16. Yeah, I knew you'd be waiting for that. I keep telling you, there's lots of podcasters that are getting like a ton more views than this platform. I'm pretty sure that you'd be high target in that. I'm wondering that you haven't been poached yet anyway.
Who says I haven't?
There you go. You're just being kind.
Righto. Okay. Not easy being green. Not easy being green. Let's do the first of all bad news bit. So bad news for our renewable energy crash dummy state, which is South Australia. And this story tells us that we were promised that our household bills were going to go down by the Labor Party. Our electricity bills were going to go down. So 4 years ago, they told us that. But this story from Adelaide, from the Adelaide Advertiser, says In fact, they've gone up. So not so good. They've gone up. And not only have they gone up by $1,000. So 4 years ago, when federal Labor was going to the election, they promised that we'd get a $275 annual cut in our power bills by 2025, by now. So that's a 16% cut is what they promised us, okay? What did they deliver us? So this story in the Advertiser tells us what they've delivered. We didn't get a $275 cut in our power bills. We got a 66% rise over those 4 years. And in fact, not only South Australia, so did every state examined. Every state was in the 40 to 80% rise over 4 years. And the only state that was sort of below 50% was Tasmania. They were on 40%. But Tassie actually started at a much higher base than all of the other states. And so Tassie is still one of the most expensive places. So the average power bill in Tasmania is $2,774 a year. And the lowest one mentioned was Victoria, $1,965. So they all rose in those states. Instead of us getting a drop, they all rose.
So now, poor Gail over there in Tassie, poor Gail, you know, be feeling that.
Now, perhaps I shouldn't be too critical here, because how did Labor reach this prediction? Well, it was through our old friend modelling.
Modelling's making a return.
So their $275 cut was based on modelling of the prices. And as we've noted in the past, models are not data. Models are not the real thing. Models have a limited number of parts, and you can choose what parts you put in the box. And before you even build your model, you know what the answer is supposed to be at the end. So if you're Airfix and you're making a Spitfire model, you already determined that the end result's going to look like a Spitfire. So you know what parts to put in. And I think that's what Labor did. They said we want a $275 average cut in annual prices. What parts do we need to get in the box to produce that thing? I think that's what happened. Now, the actual increase in South Australia was from $1,730 to $2,418. Now, you notice I've got there that South Australia was $1,455, go up to $2,418. $1,455 is what they predicted we'd pay by now. So that's why that says $1,455, not $1,730. But if you take what the actual increase was, what the price was then compared to now, it went from $1,730 to $2,400 over those 4 years. Now, I put that number into a compound interest calculator, and it says that the annual rate of electricity price rises in Adelaide was, guess what, 8.8%. Not 10% because it's compounded, so 8.8% compounded annually. That's rather close to our real inflation equals 10% number, isn't it?
Yeah, funny.
Isn't that interesting? Yet another example of that. So if anybody still believes the government inflation figures, you tell me a single price which has gone up by only the government's official figure.
Which is what, 3% or something like that? Yeah.
Not council rates, nothing. It's all, you know, if you're not working on a 10% annual figure, then you're going backwards.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, like everything's gone up. That's all BS. They cook the books and they model.
Yep, that's how they cook the books.
That's right.
And remember, it's all based on a lie. It's all based on the lie that green power is cheaper. And as I've said in the past, why does our free electricity cost so much? Because the sun's free, the wind's free. Why does it cost so much? And this follow-on story, illustrates the hypocrisy of the whole green dream. Australia currently has about 4,000 wind turbines in its wind factories. But to meet our 2030 carbon reduction target of 82%, we need to build another 25,000 of the things.
Wow.
So what? That's another 21,000. We've got 4,000 to go out to 21. 5 fours are 20. We need a 500% increase. And you already know, everywhere you go, there are these ugly, bloody things flipping around and all the previously beautiful hills. So they want to 5x the number, to save the planet because, of the CO2s. Here's the hypocrisy. The tower base on every one of those turbines uses hundreds of tons of steel, and there's a picture of a turbine base, and maybe 1,000 tons of concrete. Now, as we both know, two of the big baddies for CO2 emissions are steel making and concrete making. So they want to 5x the number of these things on top of the massive number that are out there already, using products that are massive CO2 emitters, which they seem to be concerned about. So, yeah, Greens are hypocrites. I think I've mentioned that in the past, haven't I?
Yep, and when you consider that a lot of the steel use of these is actually, we're selling our coal over to China, reducing ours. They're smelting the steel because they can, because they're not, they've got good, strong baseload power, so they produce the steel and then they ship it back to us to be able to put into these things, and plus all the equipment on these wind farms are, most of the blades and everything's made in overseas, and it's all just a massive grift on Australians taxes, and it's really just designed to absolutely drown us and kill us and prop up other countries, and it's all by design, Bruce. I don't care what anybody says. You're going to call me a cooker, conspiracy theorist, whatever. It's all designed to crush us and our great nation.
Industry requires cheap power to be competitive in Australia. So we're exporting our CO2s by exporting our industries. So how does China make the steel? Have they got some magic process that doesn't use CO2? No, they're building hundreds of coal-fired power stations every year. And by the way, half the coal that's used making steel, half of it's energy and the other half is what's called coking coal. It's a raw material input. So we get to feel good. I won't say we get to bask in a warm glow of feeling good, because we're all going to be cold, obviously. But we get to feel good because we're exporting our CO2s by exporting our industry somewhere else. So if you actually believe CO2 matters, they're just producing it in China instead of here. And then you got the shipping costs on top of it. Yeah. Madness.
Absolute madness. Absolute madness.
Now, while we're on the topic of madness, the whole green transition is mad, of course. And here we go. Yet another major green project has failed. So this proposed offshore wind farm off Victoria that AGL was going to build, they've now announced that they're not going to go ahead with it. So let's read what they said. Spokesman for AGL said the company and partners had determined that the project, known as Gippsland Skies, would fold. Officials had hoped that Gippsland, with its bolded, favourable wind conditions and proximity to the national grid. So this project was going to be close to where the power was needed, and it was going to be in a windy spot. So it had ideal input conditions. Despite that, they couldn't make it work. They couldn't make it work. Now, why couldn't they make it work, Mark? Well, according to AGL, regulatory hurdles, transmission constraints, and the sheer scale of upfront investment made the sector a risky proposition. So let me translate that. It costs too much. That's what they're saying. It costs too much. Transmission constraints meant they need to build transmission infrastructure to get the power to where it was wanted. And the scale of upfront investment, the dollars they needed to put in, made it unviable. So despite this being a favourably located project, close to where the electricity was wanted and in a windy spot, they still couldn't make it work, and they've abandoned it. Too expensive. Maybe that's why our cheap power is so expensive.
Well, yes, I know, right? It's all about bloody smoke and mirrors, mate. Smoke and mirrors.
Just putting it out there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now on to our weekly battery fire news story. And when I first saw this story, recall for $400,000 Bentley SUVs due to fire risk, my heart actually gave a little skip because I thought, in the interest of fairness and honesty, I better report on this just to show that it's not only EVs that have fire risk recalls. Then when I read into the story, bugger me, this Bentley, despite it being a $400,000 high-end product, is a hybrid. It's a Bentley hybrid. And the story says that the fire risk comes from the high voltage battery. So I started off with the best of intentions, that I was going to be showing you that, hey, I'm honest. Sometimes you can get fire risk in regular cars, but no, yet another hybrid story. And the hybrids, of course, are the worst of both worlds. Whatever the risk of fire is with a combustion engine, you get that. Whatever the risk of fire is with a battery system, you get that as well. And the whole car weighs more than it otherwise would because it's got two powertrains in it. So, yeah, oops.
When that one goes off, though, it really goes off like a cracker, like, yeah. So, but anyway, there you go.
Oh, dear. At least they're not Jaguar going fully EV.
Yeah, true. Jaguar. There's another DEA company whose profits should be right down the bloody through the floor, mate. I don't know. You see the ad? I think you did. I think you did share one of our episodes. It was a little clip. That little clip from Jaguar about. It didn't even have a car in it. It had just like people dancing and floating around. It was all a pure DEI bloody ad.
In colourful androgynous outfits with, David Bowie hair and no mention of what they're actually selling. And apparently their profits have crashed and they've actually fired the person in charge of that campaign.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah. Too bad. So sad.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll be picked up by another DEI kind of hire company.
Yeah, straight over to Gillette or what was the jeans company? Yep. So.
Oh yeah.
Now we're on the topic of battery fires. So the winner of this week's lithium battery fire challenge is this house in Caroline Springs in near Melbourne, which burnt to the ground last night. And let's see if I can get you some video of that.
Without bouncing yourself off.
I haven't got that on screen yet, have I?
Hang on, let me bring that up for you. There you go. Is that the one you're after? No, this one. This one.
Yep, that's the one. Yeah. So, as I've said before, StreamYard's a nice platform, but it's rather clunky for this sort of thing. All right,
only for some.
Let's play the story.
Who's right there at the scene for us. Was anyone inside at the time? Yeah, they were. Now, there was a family of 5 who were actually asleep down the back of the house, but lithium battery believed to be the cause of a destructive inferno that ripped through a Caroline Springs home last night. Live now to Sunrise correspondent Tegan Dorling, who's right there at the scene for us. Was anyone inside at the time? Yeah, they were. Now, there was a family of 5 who were actually asleep down the back of the house. But as you said, we understood that it was a lithium battery that started this blaze right actually in the garage here where the charred 2 cars are. We can also see all of the damage to the top story of the house as well. The roof has collapsed and it really looks like there's nothing that's going to be salvageable inside. It was 7:30 when this all occurred, 35.
Not easy being green, is it?
Yeah, so, unbelievably a battery fire. Well, that's the winner of the weekly battery fire challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, wow.
And a reminder to people, I regard the lithium battery fire risk as so real that I've moved all of my tool battery charging, so the chainsaw and all the little Ryobi tools, into a separate shed that I've got out in the paddock. So I run power to it, and that's where I charge all my batteries, so that if I do get a fire, that's all that goes. My house does not go. Now, of course, if I've got an EV and I'm in a domestic dwelling, I probably can't park it far enough away. It's almost certainly got to be parked adjacent to or under the structure. And it's going to be the same thing with these household batteries. You're going to have two massive burn your house down style batteries compulsorily for every dwelling. One's going to be called an EV and one's going to be called a household battery.
Yeah. And, you know, you and I have talked about this before about, you know, wind farms being attacked. They're all coming from China. We're talking about remote control. We just talked about smart meters. Now, this is the thing with the big adoption of cars. Who's to say that a bad actor? I know that there's EVs coming in from China. I know that a lot of them, a lot of EVs was Tesla, obviously, and obviously we're not saying that this could be possible from Elon Musk's technology, but who's to say that can't flick a signal to the electric vehicles with all that smart gadgets in it and actually create a short to create the battery to malfunction and then cause massive fires? Who's to say that potential isn't there with all this technology?
Well, of course, you know, every EV that we import from China is full of internet connectivity and electronics, because you don't just have a battery in them, they've got a complicated energy management system in them. You know, look at a Tesla, it's full of computers, same. So these things are not only vulnerable to be shut down, they're also mobile bombs, mobile incendiary bombs. So Tesla's already doing fully self-driving, and no doubt that's around the corner for all of these Chinese. So yes, you can assume that any Chinese EV that comes into the country has the potential to drive itself somewhere and start a massive fire.
Yep.
You know, the enemy is within the gates, I believe is the term.
Yep, and we talked about that with the wind farms and the electricity infrastructure. There's a lot of that's you know, owned by wind factories.
Gotcha.
Yeah, correct myself. They you know, all those that electricity infrastructure is massively funded as well by Chinese investment, and even the CCP themselves. So, you know, for our nation, our government has absolutely let us down as a nation, is absolutely destroyed us, and looking to destroy us going forward. And if people want to keep putting their head in the sand, but the problem is we've got an apathetic 80% of the population that will do nothing. They'll continue to vote Labor into government and go from there. And, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, it's going to be some form of revolutionary sit-in, Bruce, where people, you know, when it's going to hurt enough, then change will happen. But at the moment, 80% of them are still going along drinking. What do they call it? Drinking the Kool-Aid. Drinking the government Kool-Aid. Labor's, and you know what?
Drinking the Kool-Aid, that's another one of those things I should add to the list of where does that saying come from? And I'll address it here. Do you know where that saying comes from?
No, I'm going to get an education, just like a lot of other people.
Do you remember the Jonestown massacre, where there was like 200 or 300 followers of a certain religious sect all committed mass suicide? Jonestown, I think it was, Guyana. And the way they did it is they drank poisoned Kool-Aid. That's where that saying comes from. Drinking the Kool-Aid, you're drinking something poisonous that's going to hurt you. That's where that comes from.
I learned something new again. There we go. And anyway, just before you get back onto your little other segment, I'm not sure if you were finished with the green. It's not easy being green, but I just want to
never ends.
No, never ends. But look, someone's copping actually a little bit of heat, so the media is actually starting to turn a little bit, Bruce. So listen to this for a second. I don't know if you've heard. I don't know if you heard this. Let's just play this quickly. Nope.
A lot of talk about rules there, but can I ask you to talk to Australian households who you've just told are now going to lose their energy bill rebate after Christmas? How should they feel, and how do you feel when they see Annika Wells out there spending like it's Black Friday on expensive dinners in Paris and trips overseas and ski trips in Thredbo? How should they view that, and how does that make you feel when you're trying to find savings in MAFO?
Well, look, as I've said on another number of occasions already today, you know, I understand why people are interested in it, and I understand why people are concerned about it. But at the end of the day, these are within the rules. Those rules are policed independently and at arm's length from politicians. And that's what we're seeing on this occasion. Now, when it comes to electricity bill rebates, we've provided those 3 rounds of help with electricity bills. We'll continue to be providing meaningful, substantial cost of living help in the most responsible way that we can. The emphasis will shift from bill relief in a temporary sense to ongoing relief via the tax system, via the Medicare system, and in other ways as well.
You said people are concerned about it.
Last one.
Are you concerned about it, Treasurer?
I've answered your question.
Does it concern you, Treasurer?
I've answered your question, Cam. Thank you.
Treasurer, do you think it's fair, given you're here talking about the difficult economic climate, the fact that difficult decisions need to be made, quite blatantly, like, is it fair for taxpayers to be paying for business class flights as part of the family reunion allowance when households are making difficult decisions about electricity bills, school fees, and it's an expensive time of year?
Yeah, thanks very much. I refer you to the same answer I gave to Cam a moment ago. Thanks very much.
So there you go. He runs out of that.
Cut.
So he runs out of there, mate. Runs out of there. Can't see you later. I don't want to answer any more questions. But again, this is the thing. The people are starting to pick up on this. People are obviously hurting, right? For the media to start pushing questions like that in a press conference, there's a lot of heat from Australians saying that we're actually buckling under cost of living crisis, energy, and all that. And they hear politicians, flagrantly waste money on airfares and holidays. They're going to start coming for them. And I think it's starting to get a little bit unwound. And I think there is some people starting to get a bit pissed off with all this.
And let me make a couple of points there. So firstly, rules are only for the little people. Rules aren't for the rulers. They're only for the peasants. Mm-hmm. And historically, doesn't matter how poor your country is, the ruling class is still ultra rich. So Mugabe had dozens of Rolls Royces and other expensive cars at the same time as Zimbabwe was utterly devastated economically. Mm-hmm. And even back in the Soviet era, under communism, everybody's equal, all that. The ruling class, they had their dacas, their holiday houses, etc., whilst the peasants were lucky if they were, getting enough potato bread to eat. So it's coming here, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get back to your stuff there, but I just wanted to flick this up for Maria. I didn't know about this. So let everybody know that got caught up in the robo-debt with Centrelink to check MyGov or call Centrelink. They are paying back in mass class action 1, but need to complete the documents. So, well, there you go. All right, thanks, Maria, for sharing that to the peeps. So there we go. Let's go back to your little...
Back to us.
Yep.
We're not finished with the green transition fire story because here's a solar factory fire just a couple of days ago near Dubbo. I think it was a place called Wellington, which I used to work in Dubbo, so it's close to that. And we said in the past that solar factories are industrial sites. They have thousands of panels with electrical connections. They have transformers, junction boxes. They sometimes have batteries on site. So there are massive electrical conditions, and they're normally parked in grasslands. Certainly the one I drive past on the way into Horsham, it's this massive structure in golden fields of grass. And so they've had a fire in this facility near Dubbo a couple of days ago. And already the locals are blaming a faulty panel. I don't know if that's true. But unless there was lightning or some other harvesting activity, the prime suspect for a fire that's occurring in a solar factory has got to be the solar infrastructure that's there.
Yeah, they reckon it was the grass. Grass was too long. But how do you get fire brigade in there?
Well, even if the grass is long, what's the source of ignition? What's the source of ignition? If it wasn't lightning, the commonest thing we see with grasslands fires are lightning. That'll be a huge cause. And you get a lot of lightning in summer, sometimes dry lightning, sometimes not, but that starts a lot of fires. Another cause is farming activity. So machinery that either is faulty, the exhaust sparks a fire, or Sometimes the bearings in the machinery get hot and light it. Apart from that, that's pretty much it for sources. So if there was no lightning and there was no headers farming here, then the prime cause is the solar factory.
Fine. Solar factory. Absolutely.
Health news.
Oh,
Now, was it last week? I think we talked about the problems of using drugs to address a foodborne illness, that being obesity. And this report brings up yet another side effect of using that class of drugs. We call it Ozempic, but it's that class of drugs. And in this case, it's the risk of suicidal behaviour. So the TGA, so it's the Australian regulator, says that because suicidal behaviour and ideation have been reported with these drugs, so it's been reported as associated, they're going to put a warning in the boxes. Now, they said there is no proof of a causal association, but experts say the risks are significant enough that awareness is important as part of a precautionary approach. So they haven't proven a cause, but they've noticed an association, and the precautionary principle says we need to do something about it. Now do vaccines. Now do vaccines, TGA. Apply that same standard to vaccines, if you would.
Yep. Cue our friend.
Is he on?
He's on X. He's already reported. When he saw your intro slides, he already jumped onto X and made a comment.
Has he grokked us yet to find out if we're?
Oh yeah, no, it was a grok one, yes. But anyway,
Message to Dan. I don't care about grok. You give me the facts. Give me your arguments. Don't give me your grok.
Yeah, no, it was related to the early injection that you're going to be talking about now.
Don't tell me Dan supports giving hepatitis B vaccines on day one of life to newborns. Surely he's not that incompetent.
Well, there you go. Explain the impact of neonatal Hep B vaccination to anyway. He's on there. So
I'm about to cover that. So I'm going to give a strike, a gazump strike to Dan there.
Yeah, no, he saw your slide, so he thought he'd get in early.
Well, he's one of our most valued viewers. He seems to be here every week, which is great.
It's good to see. He's very consistent.
Now, here's the story that my daughter sent me. So apparently in the US, they're looking at using Ozempic type meds for companion animals. In this case, they're talking about cats. So they say there's a company that's testing the use of that class of obesity reduction drugs in cats. Now, look at the message trail there. So Heather sent me that, and my reply in blue was same food, same BMI. And then she added same profits. So this is clear evidence that I've created a monster.
Yes, people are thinking.
Good on you.
I think, yeah, absolutely.
Good on you. Well indoctrinated.
Same problem. Yep. Well done. Yep. Chip off the old block, as they would say, Bruce.
Now, by the way, my farm cats are both strict carnivores. So you've got Nigger on the left and you've got Ranger on the right, and they're both in the best of health, and there they are living their best lives. So those photos were taken today. So one's an inside cat, one's an outside cat, but they get the choice. Okay. Now, in contrast, there's a large number of companion animals, cats and dogs, that are fat and unhealthy, same as there are a large number of their human owners that are fat and unhealthy. And it's pretty much for the same reasons. Dogs, cats, and humans are meant to be basically carnivores, and they're not. So I looked up the contents of this bag of weight loss dry food. Now, when you see dry food written on the side of a pet food bag, just cross that out in your mind and put biscuit in there, okay? So weight loss dry foods are biscuits. And biscuits are not good for carnivores of any sort. So they make humans fat, they make dogs fat, they make cats fat. Now, the contents list, even in this weight loss variety of biscuits for dogs, includes all of these carbohydrates. So it's got corn, it's got corn gluten meal, it's got soybean meal, it's got soybean mill run, whatever the hell that is. It does have some, it doesn't say dried beef, that says dried beet. Dried beet. Soybean oil, which is a seed oil, flaxseed, that's a seed, etc., 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 and a whole lot of chemicals. And the rule for whole foods in humans, if there's more than about 4 ingredients, it's processed. When you buy chops, the ingredients list is chops. When you buy ultra processed, not only will there be dozens of ingredients, but most of them will be chemicals that you've never heard of. So awful lot of seeds and carbohydrates, seed oils and carbohydrates in this diet biscuit for dogs. Not going to work. Now, even if you get the good old meat-looking dog foods like pedigree, used to be called pedigree pal. I don't know when the pal bit disappeared, but that, that's the old pal, isn't it? And even the meat-like wet dog food is full of non-meat ingredients. So vegetables, plant fiber, cereal, protein, and again, vegetables. So even these meat-looking tins have got lots of non-meat in them. Now, tellingly, on the side of that tin, they only tell you what 2 of the 3 macronutrients are. So primer for people, there are 3 macronutrients. There's fat, there's protein, and there's carbohydrate. That's the bulk of any food. Then you've got all the vitamins, minerals, and all that stuff. But the food component will have 3 bits in it, if you like. Now, they've only told us that the fat is 7% and the protein is effectively 7% as well. But they haven't mentioned the carbs. I wonder why not. Fortunately, I found on the net this site where they actually review dog foods and they do analyse those things. So this analysis says that the carbohydrate content of that meat-looking wet dog food is actually 20%. So it's more than the fat and the protein combined. And remember, carnivores should have next to 0 carbohydrates because that means plants, effectively. Now, the thing here is if you take out the water content, because a lot of water in that, the carbohydrate content actually goes up to 60%.
Wow.
Now, a keto diet or a low carb diet should be, less than 10% carbs. This is 60% carbs. So no wonder our companion animals are as fat as their owners because they're all eating the same poisonous processed food, full of seed oils and carbohydrates, when they shouldn't really be eating any of that. Now, dogs are scavengers, especially Labradors, and they will eat vegetables. I mean, they'll bloody eat anything. They'll eat shoes. But they're not designed to eat it. In nature, they're not eating vegetables. They're not eating chocolates. They're not eating, chocolates are bad for dogs, whatever. They're not eating veggies. They're just not. And yet it's in all of these foods. Now, in contrast to that, here is the ingredients list for my cats. This is what my cats eat. They eat chicken hearts, they eat chicken giblets, they eat meat scraps, chops that have got some meat that I've given them. They eat whole birds, they eat whole rabbits, ranging in size from juvenile to full size. By the way, that's not my cat, for anybody who's worried. They eat the occasional mouse, although there's really none of them left. There's plenty of rabbits around. And in fact, my orange cat, who's the outside cat, the real hunter, he actually brought in medium-sized rabbits 3 days in a row, as well as telling me at dinner time, oh, my God, I haven't been fed since, sometime in August. He's been on a fast as well, apparently. And Ranger is capable of eating a 3/4 size rabbit. He starts at the head. He eats the entire thing. The only thing that's left is a few bits of fluff maybe a foot or two, and a little bit of gizzard that looks like colon to me, recognisably. Everything else goes crunch, crunch, crunch. I don't find any bones, and I'm not missing them because the little bugger drags them in through the cat door and shreds them on the carpet somewhere.
Oh, no.
In fact, it's so bad I'm going to have to rip my carpet up and put hard flooring down. But, thank you, cat. That's what it is. It's also been known to eat the odd brown snake, generally small ones. And for those who don't know, cats are very resistant to snake bites. So you will occasionally lose a cat to snake bite, but more often or most times they'll survive a bite. And they're very swift, amazingly. They're very fast and they tend not to get bitten at all. But if they do, most times they survive. And this is a bit odd. Both my cats are prone to eating those large moths that you sometimes get flying around.
A bit of protein there, Bruce.
So that's the normal diet for my cats. They are unvaxxed. They are as healthy as you like. Beautiful, sleek coats. They're not fat. They've got endless access to rabbits, for example. Like, Ranger brought in a medium-sized rabbit 3 days in a row. So it's he can eat as much meat as he wants, and it just looks fantastic. Like we showed, living his best life.
Yeah. And you mentioned vaccines. I just put this comment up here from Gail, because obviously Gail is our resident vegan that enjoys the show. Not quite. Some lamb chops have been highly processed with animals having vaccines and additives, plus they spray the decomposing flesh with a colour, not so much with grass-fed organic.
And that's a fair point, and it's the reason why I think most occasions, if you buy lamb, it's relatively cheap, so it's unlikely to have been grain-fed. And it's also why I grow my own lamb. I'm learning how to butcher lamb. I've done a few now, and it's a skill that I think a man should have. And I know they've only eaten grass. There's been no Bovaer or anything else going in. But yeah, it's a fair point.
And she's also said they're spraying Tassies with Mixo, so they're nearly all died horrendous deaths.
Yeah, I don't know if Mixo in the rabbit is going to transfer and have any effect on the cat. And look, I could eat rabbits, but I don't. I've done it once or twice as as an exercise. But they're full of small bones. They're worse than fish, and you've generally got to stew them. That's the reason you do rabbit stew, is because it's pretty hard to get a decent chop off a rabbit or a roast. Okay, rabbits are also very, very lean.
Oh, Jason, so I had to step out for a bit. Dr. Paix mentioned Pottinger's cats.
I will do another time. Fascinating story. Brief analysis. That was an experiment run years ago where they fed cats on mush rather than chewy bones and real meat. And over a series of generations, their facial bones got very deformed. Part of the old dental story, why do modern kids need braces? Because their mouths aren't big enough for all their teeth. Well, it's because they're fed soft mush rather than chops. Same with Potter's cats. They became very deformed over a series of generations when they were fed the wrong foods. Yep.
Moths. I see them eat the moths. I know one of our cats at home, he jumps up for the flies, big blowies.
I wish they would. Hell, there's a lot of blowies here, so I wish I could train my cats to eat blowies. Yes.
Yeah. All right. I think you might have dropped off your little slang, and I'll take mine off the stage, so you've got a bit more room for.
All right. So So I'm going to show you. So in the week just gone, the US FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has admitted that at least 10 children were killed by the COVID vaccines, and given there's an underreporting factor of probably 100, that means, what's that, 1,000? And remember that given the risk profile of children, it was all risk to them, virtually no benefit in giving a COVID shot to young kids because they simply didn't get the disease seriously. The only ones that got seriously affected were the ones who are already critically ill, kids with leukemia, kids with catastrophic cerebral palsy or serious ongoing issues already, same as the adults. But the chance of a healthy kid getting sick from COVID and seriously sick was effectively zero. And a lot of the times when they told us that they did, it was BS. And I'll give you an example. My brother was working in England at the time as an anaesthetist. Yep, family's full of them. And there was a story, this tragic story, you know, where a young girl of 6 or 8 died of COVID, and it was like a warning to everybody that anyone. He said he actually knew the patient because he'd been in contact with her in the hospital. And this was a catastrophically damaged kid that had severe lung disease. I can't remember whether it was cystic fibrosis or cerebral palsy, but this was a very seriously sick kid who had a respiratory infection, was being ventilated. The tube came out. They were unable to put it back in time, and the kid perished. So this wasn't a died of COVID. It was at most a died with COVID, and it wasn't a normal healthy kid. Maybe you could make an argument for giving the vaccine to kids with serious comorbidities, although I wouldn't make that argument given the evidence that, in fact, the outcomes were worse after the injections than before it. But, you know, this didn't need to be given routinely to the majority of kids because the majority of kids were never at serious risk from this. Anyway, Dr. McCullough here just gives a little thought on what he said. And notice here that one of the things he said is he mentions the invalid effectiveness surrogates. And we've talked about this before. So, for example, in a lot of cases, the COVID vaccine was deemed as effective because it created antibodies. Who cares? Maybe the antibodies don't work. Maybe they even increase your risk. You know, those escort antibodies that didn't kill the virus, but, you know, transmitted it into cells. Maybe. So interesting. McCullough obviously watches the show because he's aware as well that the only thing that matters with a vaccine is whether you get less illness afterwards. Nothing else. I don't care what your antibody counts go to. I want to know whether it works to prevent the disease. And on top of that, I want to know all the other bad side effects so I can balance them out. And good to see that McCullough mentioned that. So let's see if we can bring him up without nuking him. No promises.
Yeah, well, there's a winger.
So where are we?
Breaking story about the US FDA conceding 10 pediatric vaccine deaths after the COVID-19 messenger RNA vaccine administration. A leaked memo indicated that Dr. Vinay Prasad, an FDA staff member, messaged others in the Division of Biostatistics within the FDA, indicating that of 96 cases reviewed, 10 deaths were ascertained due to the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, these are in children, notably, who would have little or no risk from the acute SARS-CoV-2 infection. Another FDA staff member, Dr. Marty Makary, was on the television news stations over the weekend, indicated that the FDA will make changes in terms of how they evaluate vaccines. Very importantly, they won't trust antibody responses because antibodies are not an adequate surrogate for immune protection. They are a good surrogate for antigenic exposure, but not immune protection. And that they will require the vaccines to actually reduce significant clinically meaningful outcomes. And hopefully that means reductions in hospitalization and death for infectious diseases. Now, people have asked me, well, Dr. McCullough, aren't these two doctors heroes? And like so many of the new HHS and White House administration, my view is that it's a mixed picture. Now, both of these doctors were, on the frequent commenters list on major news stations, including, I was in that group too as well.
That clip makes the point that I wanted to make, and it goes on a fair bit. But that,
yeah, it does. Yeah, I remember watching that over the weekend. There's,
yes. So, thank you. McCullough said this is important. He's recognised that the risk of COVID to healthy kids was effectively zero, and he's mentioned that surrogate markers, antibody production, is not a test of whether a vaccine works. The only test of whether a vaccine works is whether it works. And of course, we would need randomized controlled trials with a placebo to work that out. Guess what we'd never get? Guess what we never get, Mark?
Lo and behold. Lo and behold.
Now, another one of the great medical lights of the COVID era is Robert Malone, and he went further on this story, stating that death was a long-known side effect of the COVID shots, and that the school mandates effectively meant that children were being coerced into taking a medical product for which death was a known side effect. And this was true for other groups as well, healthcare workers, nursing home workers, military, etc., etc. And it's one reason that I and a number of other people gave up our careers rather than comply, because this posed a lethal threat. And Malone is right to make that point. You coerced or mandated people to take a shot for which death was a known side effect.
Yep.
And the media and the general public ganged up on us if we weren't prepared to take that risk.
Yep, exactly right. Yep, and I remember even I played Angus Dalgleish having a massive rant about the vaccines and children and all that as well. He actually absolutely cut loose as well on Sky News. On Sky News as well, they aired it.
Well, he won't be getting a peerage, will he?
Nope.
Okay. Related story, in a victory for common sense, the CDC, the Centre for Disease Control, so one of the main drug regulators in the States, has just ended a 34 recommendation for universal at-birth hepatitis B vaccination for all infants. So why is this important? Because hepatitis B can be spread basically in three ways. You can get it through sexual activity, you can get it through dirty needles, or you can get it from mother to baby transmission. So it is routine in the States and here to screen mothers for hepatitis B. It's one of the things you do for a pregnant woman. So we know whether there's any risk of what they call vertical transmission. The mother passes it on to the kid. And even in the States, which probably has higher risk than here, only 1 in 200 pregnant women, not birthing people, pregnant women, has a positive hepatitis B. So obviously not all of them will vertically transmit it to the kid, maybe some would, but it means that for 99.5% of babies, there is zero risk of them catching hepatitis B until they start sharing women or needles around. So let's assume that's after the age 10. Well, effectiveness, if it's effective, of these things is only 10 years anyway. So for 99.5% of kids, we can tell whether it'll be necessary or not, even if it works. Let's leave the argument about whether it works or not. Even if it works, only 1 in 200 kids can even get any benefit from this. And we can identify them by screening the mothers. So rather than giving every kid this on day one for, the benefit possibly of 1 in 200, we can simply test the mothers and see if there's any need to give it. And I say if it works, and universal at-birth Hep B has been around for a while, since early 90s in the States. And here's the graph of the incidence of hepatitis B. And don't worry about all the colours, but here's the incidence basically. And notice that the incidence of hepatitis B was already declining before the vaccine came in. And the graph basically just kept doing its downward trend afterwards. So like so many other vaccines saved us diseases, the vaccines were introduced well after the hump when all of these vaccines were on the way down. And you've seen this graph before, but whooping cough, diphtheria and measles were all much reduced before the vaccines came in. And similar graph for scarlet fever, it also was well on the decline and continued after the vaccine came in. Oh, sorry, there was no vaccine for scarlet fever. So this is powerful evidence that all of these diseases were on the run anyway, and we've discussed why in the past. They were environmental, basically, nutritional and environmental. So, yeah, like so many other vaccine saved me diseases, the vaccines came late in the day and the diseases were already on the run.
Yep. It's almost like they knew, Bruce. It's almost like they knew, wasn't it? They had the data and thought, oh yeah, let's let's just show people that it's actually our products. So, I mean, you'd think there's a bit of thought behind that whole process, Bruce.
Mark, if they knew, they would have told us.
Oh, how silly of me! That wouldn't have been premeditated, Bruce. How silly of me to think that.
What QE bono? Who benefits from them selling drugs that aren't needed?
Mhm.
Nobody. Nobody.
No. Yeah, well, if not needed,
no.
but if nothing else, makes things worse. But you brought up people in the past talking about that we have too many people in the world, and there's a select group of individuals and think tanks that want to talk about keeping caps on population and all that. Just wonder, Bruce. I just wonder. Just spitballing, mate. Just spitballing.
Yep. Now, Overitz has mentioned vitamin K, and I need to do more research into this because, again, I don't remember the kids being offered the hepatitis B at birth. And remember, I only saw kids at birth if they were cesareans anyway, because as an anaesthetist, I didn't do routine obstetrics. But I do remember them asking the parents, okay, we want to give a vitamin K. I think it was called Kanakian shot. Is that okay? And that was done there and then at the time of birth. Now, vitamin K is not a vaccine. As I understand it, it's a procoagulant. It's designed to lower the risk of bleeds in the kid. But again, given the environment we're in, I'd want to look into that further before I said yes to anything they wanted to stick into my healthy baby.
Yep. A lot more people are asking. Well, I mean, we're seeing vaccination rates drop, which is actually sending the money makers into free fall and putting pressure on our government and all that sort of stuff. So,
yep. Now, is any of this relevant in Australia? Well, yes, it is, because the Australian schedule draws a lot of its content from the American schedule. I mean, the Americans are the world leaders. They jab their kids more than anyone else on earth. And have very high rates of chronic illness, including autism. But even in Australia, the Australian vaccine recommended schedule includes a hepatitis B shot at birth and then again at 6 weeks, 4 months and 6 months. Now, there's nothing in that, as far as I can see, that puts brackets only in mothers who have tested positive for Hep B. I can't see that in there. It's just a universal recommendation. So, yeah, we're recommended to give kids 4 jabs for a disease they're really at no risk of until they're teenagers at the earliest, and for which we can test their mothers to see if even that kid's in the 1 in 200 who might be at risk as an infant. You think they might mention that?
Yeah, I don't think so.
And here's the thing, the mothers will be tested antenatally. It'll be one of the routine things that's done. So we're actually already going to know that. It's not even going to involve an extra test because it will have already been done on the mother. Okay. Now, both the formulations used in Australia contain this thing, aluminium. Aluminum. And we've discussed in the past why I think that's a problem. So I think there's good evidence that aluminium's a neurotoxin. It's an inflammatory neurotoxin and is likely, I still think this is the key cause of autism in kids. Okay.
Yep.
Now, for all the safe and effective fans out there, and I know there's some of you, I would just note that all of these vaxxers, including the Hep B vaxxers, had the usual flaws in their safety trials. So they had no placebo group. They had very small sample sizes, too small to pick up significant effects. And the safety monitoring periods were very weak. So in one of the Hep B vaxxers, 5 days, and Energix B, which is used in Australia, only 4 days. So if the kid doesn't develop diagnosable autism or autoimmune disease or you name it, within the first 4 days of life, the safety studies aren't going to pick it up.
Funny
odd,
about
doesn't it? Seems odd.
Seems odd. No surprises there. It's a bit like, COVID adverse events not being recorded 7 days after administration because, if someone could have had COVID. So why would you, someone dies or gets seriously ill, within 7 days, it wasn't recorded as a vaccine injury.
And Norman Fenton spoke about that, and he said that the fraud of classing people as not vaccinated for the first 14 days after the vaccine was more than enough to generate any apparent effectiveness of the COVID shots. So if you died on day 7 or even day 13 after your shot, your death went into the unvaccinated box.
Yep.
Utter fraud.
Yep. Criminal, Bruce. I mean, this is the thing. People keep saying that there's enough evidence there to bloody, send people to the gallows. Nuremberg too. There's enough evidence there, but what's happening? Nothing.
Ooh, don't say Nuremberg too. You'll get Josh Teague sending the police around if you use that phrase.
Josh is liberals are cooked. Don't worry about him now. He's just going off on his power trip.
To quote the nice policeman from Mount Barker, something about Nuremberg.
Yeah, something, and you had to explain it to him.
Dr. Bruce, you know what the trials were about? Yeah, it was about the Nazis. No, it was about the doctors who were hung after the war for experimenting on unconsenting people. Yep. Oh no, well I didn't know that. Well, of course you didn't.
Now you do.
Nobody does.
What are you going to do about it? And as Mark said here, safe and effective will never be the same for people that watch our show anyway. There's a lot of people that are watching this show and many others that will, whenever they banter out safe and effective, people will roll their eye and say, shove it up your clacker.
And I thought of that earlier on when you're talking about that person who suddenly got a huge power bill increase after the smart meter. So we were promised lower power bills, be safe and effective in reducing our power bills. What do we get instead? Sudden and unexpected increases in our power bills.
Yes,
same words, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice little, what do they call it, seedway or little, link.
Little link. And just an example, we remember the Hep B shots are an $8 billion industry worldwide. So there are powerful reasons to mandate the use of this in kids that don't need it.
Yes, follow the money. It's always follow the money. There's, some pretty powerful bankers and banking families that have been around for a very long time, isn't there, Bruce? So,
that's right.
Yes.
Bilderbergs.
Yeah, funny about that, isn't it?
Righto. Good news from Trump, who still remains, shall we say, schizophrenic, or am I going to get a complaint about that from someone in the audience? Because he's announced a review not only of Hep B, but of all vaccines in the child schedule. So here's what he tweeted out almost immediately. Today, the CDC Vaccine Committee made a very good decision to end their hepatitis B vaccine recommendation for babies, the vast majority of whom are at no risk of hepatitis B, a disease that is mostly transmitted sexually or through dirty needles. The American childhood vaccine schedule long required 72 jabs. In Australia, I think it's 39. And if you add in the flu shots, it's nearly 50, and they're recommended annually. For perfectly healthy babies, far more than any other country in the world, and far more than is necessary. In fact, it is ridiculous. Many parents and scientists have been questioning the efficacy of this schedule, as have I. That is why I have just signed a presidential memorandum directing the Department of Health and Human Services to fast-track a comprehensive evaluation of vaccine schedules from other countries around the world and better align the US schedule with it. Because like I say, the US vaccinates more than anybody. So it is finally rooted in the gold standard of science and common sense, etc., etc. So, like I say, Trump hasn't been fabulous in terms of injections and vaccines. As far as I know, he still hasn't admitted that the COVID shots were wrong and he was conned, same as the rest of people. And it would be a huge fillip to his credibility if he just came out and said that.
And Margaret kind of saying, playing 5D chess, he's stirring the pot of good and evil. That's just her thoughts. But you're probably right, because we've talked about it, Bruce, and we're still, we're still out about overall what he's up to, because I mean, at the end of the day, with all the information out there now in regards to the COVID-19, response and vaccines, and he still hasn't come out and said I got it wrong. Operation Warp Speed was fantastic, baby, and all that sort of stuff. So,
yep. So yeah, he needed to do better there, I think.
Yep.
And Tricia said there makes the few shots we got back in the old days seem minuscule now. That's right. The schedule has absolutely exploded, and this graph shows it beautifully. And I won't give you a gazump strike. I'll give you a introduction strike there. This is why it matters. So back in the old days, I'm a kid from 64. Yeah, you're a bit older, maybe towards the 70s. And you see here the correlation between the number of shots and the autism rate over, what's that, 55 years? It's an almost perfect correlation. So if nothing else, it definitely needs looking at.
Yep.
Definitely.
Which is all people have been asking for, isn't it? They've been screaming for proper studies and investigations, and yet there's nothing to see. You're safe and effective. Everything's good. Ka-ching, 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 ka-ching.
Yep. And if you disagree, we'll jail you.
Yeah. Or make sure you lose your career, strip you of everything that you ever worked towards.
Take your kids away. Yes, etc., etc., etc.
Yep.
Now, that graph is a correlation graph. There is a tight correlation between the incidence of autism and the number of shots. And shouldn't have to bring this up again, but I will. So for all the people who roll out the old, well, correlation isn't causation statement. Yes, we know that. The correct statement is not that. The correct statement is correlation does not prove causation. Doesn't exclude it. And we've discussed the ways that you can determine whether correlation is causation. So the Bradford Hill criteria. Is there a plausible mechanism? Is there a tight correlation? Does the exposure lead to the effect in a short period of time, but never precede it? Is there a dose response curve? Does more exposure give you more of the outcome? So there are ways of knowing whether correlation is causation. And the ideal way to work that out, of course, is to a randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled trial. Now, the problem with that is the experts have effectively banned that from ever happening by claiming that it's unethical to deny the placebo group the benefits of the vaccine. That's the argument they use. We couldn't possibly, split half the kids up and give them saline because they're all going to get polio and die.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know that, because without a placebo-controlled trial, we don't know if your intervention actually works. And without long-term studies of large numbers of the groups who got it and didn't, we can't work out the other side effects as well. Even if it is safe and effective in the first 5 days, what's it like after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Well, we don't know, because we've never looked at it. And during the COVID era, they prevented it looking at, because they did have a randomized trial, and they nuked the control group very early on and vaccinated them all. They said, it's working, so we better give it. Now, the it's working thing was probably fraudulent, but even if it wasn't, as we know with any drug trial, it's not just whether the drug works, it's also, does it do anything else bad? And by nuking the control group, we will never know that. So Pfizer nuked their control group. They extinguished them by vaccinating them. Call it a crossover.
Yep.
Final story on the health segment, and I don't want to go too deeply into this, but I noticed during the week there's been a public war on doctors' fees. And these stories were all side by side in the Australian today. So you've got one that says medical care should be affordable for all. You've got one that says Labor declares war on specialist fees. And the third one is high stakes battle over skyrocketing doctors' fees. So I made most of these notes in the intro, but okay. In all of these cases where they're saying, doctors are charging too much, they're referring it back to what the government says are fair fees. price fixing, in other words.
Mm.
So generally they're comparing the price of a medical service to the government scheduled fee for that service, whether it's having your appendix out or delivering a baby or, 15-minute consultation with the GP. There will be a government approved fee called the scheduled fee. And that came in with Medicare in, what was that, mid-70s? I think Medicare came in. So those scheduled fees, what the government says the right fee is, has been adjusted for inflation for the last 50 years. But as we know, the inflation adjuster that the government uses is probably a quarter of what the real fee is.
Mm.
So, they'll say, oh, well, CPI was 2.9%, so the scheduled fee goes up 2.9%, for example. But as we know, one, the government ultimately is paying these costs through the Medicare system. So it's in their interest to not quote the real fee, to bring it down in the first place. And then we've got 50 years of never increasing it at the rate of inflation, at the same time as people are getting sicker. When I first started medicine, certainly when I first started anesthesia, truly fat people were rare, maybe 1 in 10. And if they were fat, they were 110 kilos when their ideal weight was 85. At the end of my career, every second person was 160 plus kilograms. They were diabetics with bad hearts and anticoagulants. They were very complex, much more complex than at the start of my career. So for those two reasons alone, the disconnect between the scheduled fee and the real cost of the service has just been getting wider and wider. And even 20, 25 years ago, when I was working in private practice, there was a significant gap already, such that if I billed everybody the scheduled fee, the government fee, I made zero money because my practice costs and my insurance consumed it all. So no business can run at a loss. So this is the reason when you go to the GP, they charge you $80 when the scheduled fee is, pick a number, 35. Because the scheduled fee is fraudulent. It's a government concocted number that bears no relationship to the real cost. So that's why.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not the greedy doctors ripping you off. It's the lying government fraudulently conflating it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep, but they've got to blame someone. The government's got to find someone to blame at the end of the day. So it's going to be the doctors. Like, they just get thrown under the bus. And how long will it be before all the doctors get thrown under the bus with not getting, as our good friend Elizabeth Hart keeps saying, is not obtaining valid, full informed consent.
Yep. That finishes a big health section finished there.
There was a big health section there. Yep. And I shared on my Facebook a post from someone talking about the Aaron Siri, who's obviously the lawyer for CHD, when he cross-examined Dr. Catherine Edwards and Plotkin and got a whole heap of information out there, and that was good. If anybody wants to try and track that down, of Aaron Siri. That
will be on the High Wire. He's Children's Health Defence is a separate thing.
The High Wire. That's right.
The High Wire is where to find him, and I have watched that. It's many, many hours of Aaron Siri asking questions. So a deposition is where one side gets to ask a whole lot of questions of opposition witnesses beforehand, so they know what's going to be brought up in court. Courts don't like surprises. And he spent many, many hours cross-examining two of the great names in vaccinology. So Plotkin and what was the other one's name?
Edwards. Was it Edwards? Let me just bring it up. Catherine Edwards.
Yep. So two of the great gurus of it, and he just shredded them. He asked them, where is the evidence for this? And over many hours, they basically admitted they had no evidence for anything. They were just saying they thought it'd be a good idea. And these are the gurus. So this is eminence-based medicine, not evidence-based medicine.
Yeah, because there was her, Catherine Edwards, and Plotkin was co-author of Vaccines, which is apparently the Bible of vaccinology. And yeah, they all got called out on it. So no evidence, no study, no data.
Plotkin's vaccines, I think it's called.
Yep. Anyway, back to the stage there.
Quick flick through money and finance. Not much movement in gold and digital gold, Bitcoin, both down a bit. ASX is flat and silver's up another 8% this week.
Wow.
I do believe a number of shows back I said that I thought silver was going to outperform for another number of reasons. And so far, so good, huh? It's basically doubled year on year. The price of silver is twice what it was a year ago.
Just as well we have evidence in the recordings of these shows. You always can go back and say, you know what, 6 months ago, I told you so.
Yeah, I love that phrase, I told you so.
Yes, there were many people told over 5 years ago, and still they want to put their head in the sand.
In fact, I'm going to use them as my pronouns. I told you so.
Yeah, nice. Yep. And the plotkin thickens. Good on you, Jason, always coming up with those little quips.
No worries. Diversity is divisive. Only got one brief story here, and it struck me because this New South Wales Council has voted to stop all the Indigenous recognition BS on the grounds that it's divisive and the ratepayers don't want it. So how about that? You've got a council that actually listens to the ratepayers instead of telling them what to think.
How about that?
Yep. Nice to see, huh?
Yeah. Isn't it good to see the council listening to the ratepayers? Yep, good to see. A lot more people fighting though, but that's okay.
Miscellaneous. So this was from Robert Malone's Substack, which covers. Robert Malone is another one of those doctors who, after he woke up to the lie that was COVID, he woke up to a lot of the other lies of government as well, including finance and so forth. So he covered this story on his Substack this week, where he pointed out that AI is now so good that it can easily fake a voice, and it's on the cusp of being able to fake a vision as well. So he said that over Christmas, there's increased risk of these I need money calls. You know, your daughter rings you, I've got a fine, I need to pay it, the car's broken down, I need money for a taxi. And he makes the point that these calls can now be faked. They can sound perfectly reasonable. And even if you know your daughter's phone number, the voice can say, oh, yeah, I borrowed a phone, et cetera, et cetera. So he said, okay, here's what you need to think about doing. And I've already gone down this track a while back. So you and your close circle need to have some sort of safety phrase that you can use to verify any such call. And you can't just ask them, a bit of common knowledge. You can't say, what's the name of the dog you had, 10 years ago, or the dog you had as a kid? Because AI may have already scraped that out of the internet. So you can't have something like that. But you can have a random phrase that you've pre-agreed on, and you can ask this voice, okay, just to verify that, what's the safety phrase? And if it's something like Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and you've discussed it offline, without devices listening on you, the AI is not going to know that. And if it doesn't know that, it's a fake. Now, failing that, if you haven't arranged that, you could consider asking them something that only the real person would know. But that's with a caveat I just said, which is that a huge amount of stuff can be scraped off the internet. So you'd probably want to go back a fair way and pull out something that was never discussed on a digital platform. When we were kids, you remember we went on holidays and that funny thing happened? You broke your leg, whatever. Do you remember what happened when we were on holidays in Apollo Bay when we were kids? So you could use that. I think it's an inferior fallback. And finally, you could also ask a fake question.
Yep.
You could say, oh, and by the way, Uncle Tom had his surgery last week. Do you know how that went? When he was never going to surgery. And so these are things, and Trish, these are not from me, these are from Robert Malone. So these are things to think about, and Christmas would be ideal when you are getting together with your family, but don't do this with any listening devices. So no phones in your pockets, no Roomba vacuums, no Alexas, no laptops running. So you need to do this somewhere you're not being listened to. So I thought that was good information.
Yeah, it's scary that we even have to think about that, hey? This is where we've got to.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yep. It just reminds me, in the early days, watching back the old Terminator movies and that, and, Skynet becoming active and all this sort of stuff, it really does have, parallels to all this progressing technology and everything like that. Not to say that it's going to get to Terminator stage, but it's really is concerning to think that we're at the stage now where we have to think about the fact that AI can totally make a fake us, right? Which is what these people have been working on behind the scenes, and people like Elon Musk and whatever, regardless of how much people think he's done this great job on getting X and all that. He's been at the forefront with his billions about this type of technology, neural implants and all that sort of stuff. So, yep, all working on the same page.
And you make a good point. How long is it until AI can not only fake your voice and your appearance, what about if it can fake you? It can make a robot, Terminator-like, that looks like you, talks like you, acts like you. Wonder how far we are off that.
Yeah. No, we're not that far. 2030 maybe, Bruce.
Sounds like a great time, doesn't it?
Seems to be a date that picks up all the time. What can happen in the next 5 years, Bruce? 4 years?
Rings a bell. Zombie stories that will not die. Now, remember in the past we've discussed the old place X is warming twice as fast as the rest of the world story, and we've debunked it in the past. Well, they've rolled it out again. So apparently New England, that's the New England in America, not the New England in New South Wales, is warming faster than most other places on Earth. Now, a quick Google said that there's also a number of other places that are warming faster than anywhere else on Earth. So there's Canada, there's the Arctic, there's Europe. So there's a lot of this warming faster. There's Asia. So Europe, Asia, Canada, so the Americas. There's not much left that's not warming faster than everywhere else, is there? And Anthony Watt's podcast, What's Up With That, did a redux on this because he debunked this actually 15 years ago on his blog, and he updated it 6 years ago, and he commented on this in the past. So let's take a look at what Anthony Watts had to say about this in the past.
Yeah, what's up with that, Bruce? There's bloody, what's up with that? So many years of scamming, and
So it looks like
yeah,
everywhere on Earth is warming twice as fast as everywhere on Earth.
and then so in line with that, Senator Roberts put this up. Arctic experts predict final collapse of sea ice within 4 years. That article is back from 13 years ago.
And there's your problem with setting a doomsday date.
And of
Which we
course, the
discussed.
Guardian. Of course, the Guardian, right? So it haven't changed. Just a mouthpiece of the globalist puppets that want to bloody control every aspect of our life.
Well, guess where the twice as fast as story came from?
It has to be the Guardian. Of course it is. Yep. At least you're Guardian. At least you're consistent. Yep.
Now, for those of you who couldn't count, I went back slowly through this. So here are all the places that have been warming twice as fast as everywhere else in the last 20, 25 years. So Tibet, Korea, Britain, Norway, Spain, Sweden, Singapore, the Arctic, the Antarctic, the Himalayas, China, Canada, Alaska, United States, Japan, South Africa, Mongolia, Russia. Well, I got Japan twice there. Well, twice as fast, I guess. Finland, Europe, and of course, Australia. So they're all the places that are warming twice as fast as everywhere else, apparently. Now, maybe that should have been in the Myths Busted section rather than in the zombie stories section, but there we go. So it's only one story in the Myths Busted, but gee, it's a doozy, so bear with me. So what's today, the 8th? Yeah, so yesterday was the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. So happy Pearl Harbor Day, Mark.
Yeah.
And it was, the 41, so that's the 84th anniversary, I think, of the surprise Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Very successful attack, which sunk 5 battleships, killed 2,500 people, mainly sailors, and brought a reluctant America into the Second World War. So that's the official story. But there are questions about the official story. And this book, Day of Deceit, lays it out very well. So this was written by former US Navy officer Robert Stinnett, and he paints a very different story. So he says that America forced Japan to attack it by blockading its oil supplies, which is not disputed, and then facilitated the attack. So they made it happen, then they facilitated it to happen. So see that word I got at the top there, MIHOP? That's a make it happen on purpose. And the brother to the MIHOP is the LIHOP, the let it happen on purpose. The concept being that a government way conjure or allow an enemy to do something, attack it in some way, because it's what they want. They're going to benefit from it. So here's what Stinnett says smells about the story. So first off, it was a MIHOP in the sense that the US forced a response from Japan by blockading their oil supplies, and that's true. But he also says the US had ample SIGINT, signals intelligence, prior to the attack, so they knew it was coming and they knew what the target was. So they had very extensive signals and intelligence gathering capabilities. They'd broken the Japanese code, so they knew when the ships left Japan, they knew where they were going, they knew when they were going, and they knew what the target was, that being Pearl Harbor. And they knew this in real time. Now, despite this, they failed to warn the military commanders at Pearl Harbor. So there was a general in charge. He was in charge of the aircraft and the ground forces, because at the time there was no US Air Force. It was the Army Air Force. And there was an admiral commanding the ships. So neither of these commanders were told that an attack was coming, despite the fact that the US government clearly knew from a number of things, included massive decoded SIGINT. Not only did they not tell the commanders on the ground at Pearl Harbor that an attack was coming, they actually facilitated it by ordering the return of a number of patrolling naval vessels, which were off to the northeast of Pearl Harbor, which is where the Japanese attack came from. So there were ships at sea that would have detected the Japanese fleet hundreds of miles away from Pearl Harbor and could have done something about it. So those ships were in place, and the government ordered the admiral in charge to recall them to port, which he did. The government ordered the general commanding all the aircraft to line them all up and cluster them together on the pretext that there were saboteurs about, so it'd be much easier to guard them if they're all together. Problem with that is it makes them much easier to destroy with an air attack if they're all just lined up. So if they'd said there's an attack coming, he would have dispersed the aircraft. Finally, they had a radar station on the northeast edge of Oahu, which was the island, which actually detected the incoming Japanese raids. And they then ordered this radar station to shut down. They said, no, that's a flight of bombers coming in from the USA. We know they're coming. That's fine. Oh, and by the way, switch everything off and go home. So these were all things that happened which suggest that, this wasn't a surprise attack at all. This was a MIHOP. The Americans made it happen by blockading Japan, and they facilitated it to happen by all the things that I've just said. And this is a comprehensive book written by a naval historian who used to be a naval officer. So I looked up a few reviews of this. So the Kirkus book review site reviewed the book, and it said, explosive and well written. Stinnett easily makes his case that US knew an attack was coming and did not prepare for it. Even more shocking is his discovery that the North Pacific area, where an attack was believed likely to originate, was declared a vacant sea just weeks prior to the attack, and patrols were forbidden in this area. So they withdrew all the forces that could have detected it. Now, Simon & Schuster's review said, Stinnett proves that Pearl Harbor was not an accident, a mere failure of American intelligence, or a brilliant Japanese military coup, by showing that ample warning of the attack was on FDR's desk, and, furthermore, that a plan to push Japan into the war was initiated at the highest levels of government. So that's what two independent book sites said as a review. What did the Google say? The Google said, Day of Deceit is a provocative book that brings to light many declassified documents previously unavailable to the public, raising important questions about intelligence failures and pre-war assumptions. However, its central claim of a deliberate conspiracy to allow the attack is not accepted as credible by a majority of established historians and intelligence experts. Now, I've circled there a couple of false arguments from the Googles. Can you name them from last week, what those false arguments are?
No, not off the top of my head. Remind me.
Dear, oh dear.
Yeah.
So,
I was looking for the cryptic ones, not the circled ones.
no, it's the circle ones, and I do not accept your answer.
No.
So he's not accepted as credible by the majority. So that's what's called an appeal to consensus. And secondly, the majority of whom, of experts. Well, that's an appeal to authority. So the majority of the experts say he's wrong. So that's two false arguments. Because if you want to say he's wrong, you've got to say why he's wrong, not just that everybody knows he's wrong. So I think there's persuasive evidence that Pearl Harbor was a MIHOP. And if you're interested in looking into it, there's the book, Robert Stinnett, Day of Deceit.
Yeah.
Now, there have been other examples where governments have used MIHOPs or LIHOPs, or even just outright lies, to achieve political ends. And the political end in the previous example is FDR wanted to get the United States into the war, but the US public didn't want to be part of it. They were isolationist at the time, and they regarded a European war as none of their business. A bit like us, why we're in the Afghan and Iraq wars, for heaven's sake. So he needed a trigger to get the American people behind him, or he couldn't take America into the war. So that's what the trigger was. They engineered this attack, after which everybody was outraged and America was in the war.
Mm.
Now, here's an example of other MIHOPs and LIHOPs. So we had the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964. In the Gulf of Tonkin accident, there was an actual attack on a US vessel off the Vietnamese coast on 2nd of August. Now, it caused no damage, and the attacking North Vietnamese small craft, 2 of them were sunk and 1 of them was seriously damaged. Now, a couple of days later, there was a second attack. So the destroyer that was attacked moved 100 nautical miles out to sea, and then there was a second attack on that destroyer at night. So that was on 4 August. The only problem is that second attack never happened, and that was admitted by their Defence Secretary, Robert McNamara, many, many years later. He said that the second attack never happened. So the first attack happened, the second attack never did. And this YouTube presentation explains how they engineered it. So I'm going to clip out a few things from that. So what are we going to do? Start there.
Until the War on Terrorism, Vietnam was the longest conflict in American history. By the end of that war, in April 1975, 57,939 Americans would be killed or missing in action, with an estimated 250,000 South Vietnamese soldiers also dead. The Gulf of Tonkin incident sparked the great conflict that had been a series of small counterinsurgency missions. This event was the reason that President Lyndon Johnson justified going to Congress to appropriate military funding to expand American military involvement in Vietnam, starting a major conflict that would last until April 1975. Johnson had many personal and financial reasons for getting involved in the war, not the least of which was his stock portfolio in the military armaments industry, especially the Hughes Aircraft Company that built many of the helicopters used in the conflict.
And I've asked you in the past, how many American helicopters were shot down during the Vietnamese War?
No, there was heaps, wasn't there?
5,500.
That's right. Yeah, nice money.
So they all had to be built again, didn't they?
Yep.
And of course, there were many other, that's just helicopters. There were many other forms of air power which were destroyed.
How did Johnson convince the public and Congress to get involved in Vietnam? What did he say to create the atmosphere for war? What was the real truth behind the event that people did not know?
So they've already mentioned there that he profited financially from the US going to war. What they haven't mentioned, of course, is that all the lobbying that would have gone on behind the scenes. So not only did he get his shares went up, but how many dollars, went to him under the table from lobbyists and other people? He was bought as well as profiting from stuff that he already owned.
Was no actual attack? And Sharp answered, yes. On the evening of August 4th, 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson gave the following address to the American public on all 3 national TV stations, opening the door for his starting full-scale military operations in Vietnam.
So prior to the Gulf of Tonkin, there was very limited US involvement, a few advisors, no land forces. And remember, this grew into a massive 10-year war with hundreds of thousands of troops, thousands of aircraft and other platforms. So after Gulf of Tonkin, LBJ massively expanded the Vietnam War.
He stated in his address, "My fellow Americans, as President and Commander-in-Chief, it is my duty to the American people to report that renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin have today required me to order the military forces of the United States to take action in reply. The initial attack on the destroyer Maddox on August 2 was repeated today by a number of hostile vessels attacking 2 U.S. destroyers with torpedoes. The destroyers and supporting aircraft acted at once on the orders I gave after the initial act of aggression. We believe at least 2 of the attacking boats were sunk. There were no U.S. losses. The performance of commanders and crews in this engagement is in the highest tradition of the United States Navy, but repeated acts of violence against the armed forces of the United States must not be met only with alert defense, but with positive reply. That reply is being given as I speak to you tonight. Air action is now in execution against gunboats and certain supporting facilities in North Vietnam, which have been used in these hostile operations. In the larger sense, this new act of aggression aimed directly at our own forces again brings home to all of us in the United States the importance of the struggle for peace and security in Southeast Asia. Aggression by terror against the peaceful villagers of South Vietnam has now been joined by open aggression on the high seas against the United States of America. The determination of all Americans to carry out our full commitment to the people and to the government of South Vietnam will be redoubled by this outrage.
So note there a very common US tactics. They've named or deemed that their opponents are terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
And how often have we heard that? You know, the war on terror, narco-terrorists is the current example where the Americans are blowing up speedboats. They're drugs coming to America, despite the fact that they're 1,000 miles from America and the boats couldn't possibly go that far. They're just attacking and blowing them up from space. So the US is very prone to labeling opponents as terrorists. They like doing that.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, they're not just Americans either.
Johnson needed an event to justify direct combat action, and McNamara decided that the very questionable evidence of any attack was genuine. On August 7th, Congress, with near unanimity, approved the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which President Johnson signed into law 3
So less than a week after the second fictitious attack on the US destroyer, the American government was all behind him and a massive escalation in the war happened at that point.
days later. Vietnam had just become a war based upon a lie. The Johnson family investment portfolio exploded as Vietnam required weapons, ammunition, and helicopters, investments that Johnson profited from heavily as he increased the troop presence every year.
Yeah, and not only profited from his investments, but no doubt there was a huge amount of lobbying money that went his way as well.
Mm.
Sidebar, I once asked Vice Admiral James Stockdale about this event during an interview, and he said, quote,
Okay, so why do we bring up Vice Admiral Stockdale? The reason his opinion mattered is because at the time of the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the then Commander Stockdale was dispatched in an aircraft, I think it was a Crusader, from a nearby aircraft carrier to respond to not one but both incidents. So he was the only airman overhead during both attacks. So he's allowed to have an opinion about what happened.
Mm.
They lied. They had to. Johnson wanted his war, and he got it one way or another. He caused our country a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering. End quote. As a sidebar again, on his next deployment, while commander of Carrier Air Wing 16 aboard the carrier USS Oriskany, CV-34, his A-4 Skyhawk jet was shot down over North Vietnam on September 9th, 1965. Stockdale would be a POW in Hanoi, brutally beaten and tortured until 1973, earning 4 Silver Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, and the Medal of Honor. Lyndon Johnson, always an aggressive and controversial figure, is covered in our video on him in our Most Corrupt series. Many historians have debated why he wanted war in Vietnam. For this historian, it is not a mystery. His personal wealth increased dramatically as the war escalated, having entered office as president with a collective net worth of around $400,000, including his wealth from his wife Lady Bird's radio and TV stations. And he left office with a net worth of $15 million, or $109.3 million today. Yes, Vietnam was very good to President Johnson.
Has a familiar ring to it, in 20, 30 years' time, historians will be doing a run on COVID, and you will have a lot of figures being lined out saying, well, how many people benefited financially from everything that's gone on? How many people are benefiting from the climate scam grift? How many people are benefiting from the COVID scam? How many people are benefiting for all wars? And it's not finished yet either, Bruce, because the weapons manufacturing industrial complex is still going, and Europe is approaching war. They're trying to hammer down further on what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. When what's his name, Donald Trump wants to try and bring peace to the region, you've got others trying to undermine it wherever they go, and that's the Europeans, the Brits, and the French, and all that. It continues. All at the expense of everyday people, soldiers that sign up to do, what's right by their country, and they're sent into these disastrous things and killed, all for the sake of people lining their pockets and further wealth creation for warmongers and bankers and so forth. And it's about time people wake up. But people have been calling this from the rooftops for decades and decades, haven't they, Bruce? But I don't know. Are enough people waking up, do you think? I don't know.
They just get labelled as unpatriotic, don't they? Think of all the young men who lost their lives in Gallipoli or the Western Front. What the hell were we even doing there?
Yep.
Now, here's a map of where that happened, and I've circled roughly where the Gulf of Tonkin is. So first question is, what the hell was a US destroyer doing just off the coast of North Vietnam there? Why were they there? If not to provoke an attack, a MIHOP, and then profit from it. And I've circled to the right the other current place where we're seeing a lot of this happening lately, and that's the Taiwan Strait and elsewhere in the South China Sea. Why are Australian, US, New Zealand, Canadian military assets operating there? Is it to engineer a future MIHOP to then turn into a war? Fair bit of history says it might be.
Yeah. Well, I don't put it past any of these smugs.
Here's a few other MIHOP LIHOPs. And after last week, I don't have to say too much about 9/11, but there are many things that don't add up on it. And it certainly does suggest that it was an inside job. And what came out of it? We got the global war on terror. There's that word terrorist again. Spawned the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, and it had domestic government benefits at home as well. We had the Patriot Act, which allowed the US government to massively increase surveillance on its own citizens, in case they're domestic terrorists, you see. So there were benefits both onshore and offshore after that.
Yep.
And I fell for it, because I participated in both of those invasions. So I was in Iraq in 2003. I was a dapper, young-looking chap then, wasn't I?
Hey, well, many would say if you shave the beard, you'd probably get back there, Bruce.
Unfortunately, I can't until this country heals.
Be a long time, won't it?
And on the right, I was in Afghanistan. In fact, I was in Afghanistan twice. So I fell for it. Why the hell was Australia in Iraq? Why the hell were we in Afghanistan? Now, we didn't lose a lot of people in either place, but we lost some. And, of course, we killed a lot of locals as well. and probably all based on a lie.
Same reason we're now that we're we've sent $1.6 billion to Ukraine so far, or sending more. So
Yep.
to continue that cannon fodder.
Which brings in Major General Smedley Butler, former Commandant of the US Marine Corps from the best part of a century ago. Now, Smedley Butler was one of America's most decorated soldiers. He was a veteran of 5 wars, including World War I, and a recipient of 2 Medals of Honor. So, Medal of Honor is probably not quite as prestigious as a Victoria Cross. So he effectively had 2 Victoria Crosses, and the number of soldiers who've earned 2 Victoria Crosses can be counted on 1 or 2 hands. There's been very few. Well, he was a lifelong career warrior, and at the end of it, he became an opponent of war, and this is what he said about it. This is a Major General. War is a racket. It always has been. It's possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, and surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives.
Yep.
So he woke up a long time before I did, but he woke up in the same way, by being there and noticing the contradictions, by working out what it was really about. So hats off to Smedley Butler. And I've told you in the past, you know, when I flew around Baghdad and Kandahar, and I noticed the vast number of helicopters. You know, I would land at a little military base in Baghdad and there'd be 50 helicopters. Then you'd take off and 5 minutes later you'd spot down again and there'd be another 50. And then 5 minutes later, another 50. Plus all the jet aircraft, you know, hundreds, thousands of them. And I looked around and I said, this is very expensive. This is all about money. And remember when the US finally had milked the Afghan war dry and left the place, a year and a half ago? They left all their equipment behind. Guess what happened?
Has to be replaced, doesn't it?
You got to make more. And by the way, Australia spent the best part of 100 Bushmasters to Ukraine.
Yeah, got to replace them too. They've contributed to the war record too.
We've seen the stories about Bendigo being awarded contracts for more. So, yeah.
Yes.
And here's another example of what was at least a lie-hop, if not a my-hop, and that was the October 7 attacks a couple of years ago in Israel. Now, I think it was a cooperative effort between Israel and Hamas. I think they actually got together and agreed for this to go forward. And here's the things that don't make sense about that attack. So we had Hamas launch an attack across the most heavily surveilled border on earth. We've had Israeli soldiers who worked on that border say that we knew if a bird crossed that border. If a single camera blanked out on that border, it was followed within 5 minutes by a QRF, Quick Reaction Force. A helicopter would land to investigate it. Yet when this happened, not only did the Israelis say, hey, we knew nothing about it, and remember, Gaza is a very small place. It would be intensively surveilled from the air at all times, and it would be full of Israeli intelligence operatives. And yet Israel claimed, well, we had no idea. You know, we might be the best in the world at this. It might be a very short border that's intensely surveilled, but hey, you got us. There was the other stuff about a lot of the guards being stood down. So they denuded the border anyway. The QRFs took hours to arrive when they're supposed to arrive within 5 minutes. And this was despite Israeli citizens dialing 911 as they were being shot at the music festival. Nothing happened for the best part of a day. So none of that made sense. Now, who benefited from this? Well, Netanyahu benefited because his government was really struggling at the time. He was looking at a no confidence motion, which he was going to lose. He had the judiciary of the country up in arms against him and looking to cancel his power. So people always get behind the government in times of war. So a war certainly helped Netanyahu. It also let him then stir up aggression or tensions with Iran, which meant that the nexus between America and Israel was strengthened. So a lot of weaponry was sent there as a result of this. How did Hamas and the people of Gaza benefit? Well, the people of Gaza didn't benefit, but their rulers, Hamas, did. So Hamas is a terrorist or asymmetric organisation. And in the modern era, terrorists win by staging publicity stunts and then filming the results to the world. And this is why you see all the pictures of bloodied babies being carried around and hospitals and milk factories being blown up, because these are weapons. So Hamas got to have lots and lots of pictures of wounded babies being carried out of blown up buildings, which is what they use for weaponry. And of course, all the global weapons manufacturers benefited from this. There were huge amounts of air defense and dumb bombs and guided bombs dropped. So the weapons manufacturers definitely benefit as well.
And not to mention the all the organisations and corporations that benefit from the rebuilding process, Bruce.
And that's yet to be seen, but that's going to be the next stage. And you can bet that Schlumberger and BlackRock and KBR, all of the major logistics companies, they're going to be in there like a shot, aren't they?
Yep.
So I think October 7 was not a lie-hop, not a my-hop, it was a undercover, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, I think, between the government of Israel and the government of the Gaza Strip. And in both cases, the people suffer.
Yep. And what it also creates for the people that instigate all this is a massive division, as we've seen all through countries, including like Australia. You've got the pro-Israeli side and then the pro-Palestinian side. So it's a deliberate attempt to keep people divided and distracted from what the big, the warmongers and the big banking cartel are up to.
So even back in Australia, which again is nothing to do, you could hardly be further from the Middle East. Our government benefits from the increasing tension, because people tend to turn to government for safety when there's tension. Was it Mencken who said the sole aim of practical government is to create fear through an endless series of hobgoblins? And what else do we get in Australia? Well, we got new laws. The Victorian government, you're not allowed to protest within X metres of a synagogue or within a defined area. You can't march, you can't protest. So government's got more crackdown powers on their citizens as well. So I don't mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Yeah, no, this is the sooner people wake up to it. But again, most people will just look at it and go, oh, well, because they're glued to the 6 o'clock news with all the bloody propaganda news and don't listen to this. So they'll just keep electing the same people that keep allowing all this to happen.
Hamas is bad, Putin's bad, the Taliban's bad, Saddam's bad, you name it. Yep, that's all people know. We had to because they were bad. I mean, I remember my mother saying, to my surprise at one point, and I'm sure she never listens to the show, somebody should just shoot Putin. And I went, why? And she said, you should never invade another country. And I said, I participated in the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, right? And she said, what?
Yep.
The Nazis would still be in charge of France if D-Day, the American invasion of France, never happened. You know that, right? And she said, what? Yeah. Putin bad, Netanyahu good, Hamas bad, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah. Whoever it is, just paint it all. It's all part of the whole circle of what these people are doing.
And you notice the end result of all these lie hops and my hops is a big war.
Yeah. Yep. And who benefits? The people, the bankers and the weapons manufacturers, the vaccine producers. It just list goes on. And yet, there's so much evidence there. Yeah, cui bono. Who benefits?
Yeah, we noticed that. I was conned, and I feel sorry for all the other people who were conned. You know, there are a lot of people in America after 9/11 who raced off to the recruiting office, including that famous football star who gave up his career and joined the army. And he went to Iraq and died. It was very sad. Might have been Afghanistan he died in. I can't think of his name. So, and there were many others. You know, there were, I think, 5,500 deaths in Iraq and Afghanistan amongst the Americans. And for what? It was all a lie, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Geez, we might be knocking on the door of close 8 o'clock show. Bloody hell.
I've only got one more section, and that's the Uslam section. And that's good old Sam's update on the discounts for trannies story from last week. So let's see what he had to say.
It wasn't that one. It was another one I was referring to where he's going on his big rant.
And I think this is where you wanted to have your trigger warning.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
adulting.
Further than this, non-binary drivers are getting cheaper car insurance than your average bloke. Yep, I said that correctly. All you got to do is tick that rainbow box, bang, cheaper insurance. Honestly, what upside down clown world are we actually living in for this to be real, right? NRMA does this to be inclusive and puts in a non-binary option, and then 24 hours later, every single bloke starts ringing up and saying he's non-binary just to get cheaper car insurance. Honestly, you don't know how happy it makes me to read everywhere online of your average bloke ringing NRMA up and getting cheaper insurance because they now identify as non-binary, right? And this just shows how ridiculous this non-binary garbage really is. I'm so bloody glad the Australian public is finally waking up to this fucking bullshit that has been pushed onto us for like the past decade. And I'm so glad that your average Aussie is now saving hundreds of dollars a year through selecting non-binary options, right? Apparently it went live yesterday. And then by lunchtime today, thousands of people have rung up and switched as a non-binary driver. This is one of the funniest loopholes I've seen in Australian history, right? And now NRMA, they're apparently trying to backpedal like a corrupted politician. Oh, sorry, it was a mistake. We're now reviewing it. It was no mistake. You just bent the knee to the woke mob, and now the Australian people are having their say. And let's be real for a second. You're telling me that a non-binary person that can't even choose their own gender is a better driver than your average male? Really? Are you having a laugh? These people are indecisive as hell. They're going to cause accidents everywhere, and you're giving them a premium on their car insurance? I mean, I'm just saying, I know who I'm going to trust more to drive me from one side of the city to the other, and it's definitely not someone who can't even choose their own gender. I'm just going to say that. Non-binary option on a fucking car insurance. Burn it down. Get rid of it. We need to fucking bring back some common sense. This isn't inclusion. It's insanity with glitter on top. And to all the Australians out there, keep ringing these companies and keep switching to non-binary. I'm not going to judge you if you're saving a few $100 a year, okay? We're in a cost of government crisis. We all know that, right? So to every single Aussie abusing this glitch right now, you guys are absolute legends. What's your thoughts? If you want...
Yeah, no, he's good. He's bloody good. No, it wasn't the one I was thinking of. As he was off on this last one. It was totally the old language on this one. He was offloading on Pocock. I mean, that is an absolute perler. So have a look out for that one. That's a real classic.
Do you think we should adopt that sort of F-bomb style?
I'll go for it, Bruce. I won't judge you.
Yeah. You hit a couple of things that I think is right, and one of them is, if everybody does this swamped, they're backpedaling now. He mentioned the sort of mental health aspect, which I mentioned last week. These people really safer drivers. Hard to imagine.
Yeah, exactly right.
Anyhow, what happened after that? He said that the companies were backpedaling. So I found this. It said that NRMA and Allianz have announced an internal review of the policy and emphasised that customers must provide accurate information, as falsifying gender could void a policy or lead to fraud charges. Now, leaving aside their confusion of gender and sex, because there was male, female, and non-binary, right? So there's sex, and gender put together there. Leave that argument aside for a minute. Surely the very definition of falsifying your gender is transgender, is it? Surely the very definition is. Nevertheless, as we've discussed previously, the way to defeat this is for everybody to identify, because as David McCullough said, if everyone is special, then no one is. So if we all tick that box, it goes away. All right. So that's very important. And I think Benjamin Franklin had another relevant quote where he said, the best way to defeat an unjust law is to follow it strictly. So there's a variant of that here. If you want to defeat a ridiculous rule, run with it. Run with it. I have to look up whether it was Franklin. It might have been Lincoln. I'm going to Google that now.
It's got you.
Way to defeat an unjust law. My money's on Franklin. I've just pricked. Oh dear, it's a Google. All right. Attributed to Abraham Lincoln, supported by Mahatma Gandhi, etc., etc. So it sounds like it might be a Lincoln quote. But hey, I took him as a second in the Daily Double there, didn't I? So maybe I'll get sort of get my bet back, perhaps. So yeah, I haven't yet asked Shannon's whether. I'm going to actually ask them. One is, do they have such a policy? And if they do, what are the criteria? And that's what you want to ask. Before you tick the box, you want to ask, okay, what verification is needed? And as we know, that if any verification whatsoever is needed, then the wokerati are going to attack them. Because my gender is what I say it is, and you must not question it.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
if my throbbing manhood might be walking around the ladies' gents, but if I toilets, but if I say I'm a woman and you say I'm not, that's a hate crime.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yep. And the judges are even are ruling on it.
Especially if I'm Aboriginal, Indigenous, and Torres Strait Islander.
That's right. Then they've got no out, have they?
Well, it'd be hate speech on so many levels, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. Oh, look at you go.
And there at 7:48, so that's 2 hours 48. That won't be one of our longest shows. And only a few days ago, I'm thinking, gee, we're a bit thin on content, and it's just sort of flowed in over the last few days.
Yeah, no, it's definitely definitely had a lot of banter, and there are lots of comments in there as well. So we had a fair bit going on tonight, and I just wanted, because it looks like we've got a few newbies as well watching as well, which is nice. And I think it was Mark mentioned something about having to go over to Rumble, and obviously because I'm streaming on Facebook as well, and some people are commenting on Facebook. I just wanted to, before we wind up, just remind people that they can actually. It's uploaded on Rumble, so I am also on Rumble. South Australian Focus is where it goes, but also on the Cafe Locked-Out platform on Rumble. I also do some other content on Faith, Culture, Politics in Australia podcasts. I've got some different type of interviews there on that, and I've also got, luckily at the moment, still haven't been canned off YouTube yet, but got some of the stuff on there, although it's been censored. And then, as people know, also still on my Substack, so people can, these episodes are uploaded to the Substack, and obviously X and Facebook. So, and I just wanted to say, Bruce, too, one of my articles was published in The Spectator. So how about that? The South Australia's Uluru Statement article. So there you go. All right. So thanks to the Spectator for chucking that article in there. So there's plenty of places where people can follow along if Facebook if Facebook decides they want to play silly buggers. But, you know, as I was mentioned to you, Bruce, it's really, really weird. There's a lot of top hitting names that were on X and or banned during the COVID era that I'm actually seeing a lot more on Facebook now. So I'm wondering what's happened with the Facebook management and algorithms and all that, because I'm actually getting a lot more, and as soon as I say this now, I'm probably going to get a strike, but I'm actually getting a lot more traction on the Facebook page than I am on X. I'm heavily, as I said, I've got about 5,500 followers on X, and most of my posts only get viewed by about 40, only get about 40 views. My Facebook is going off, so very interesting. But anyway, thank you, my dear friend, as usual. And you know, if people can't see me on Facebook, we have plenty of options. I uploaded to Substack. So thanks for all your research, my dear friend, and everything that you bring to us. And I think the audience does appreciate all your insights and the stories you bring, my dear friend.
And thank you for the platform. And let me finish just with this comment. So over it just said non-binary. Do I turn left or right? Now, I made this point a few weeks ago. If you're non-binary, that's as opposed to what? So if you're non-binary, that's as opposed to binary, right? Which means there's two options, which means back to binary, guys. That makes sense. That's not my observation. I can't remember who pointed that out. But yeah, if you got two options, binary or non-binary, you're back to binary options again, aren't you? Tough. Tough. It's one of those oxymorons. Uslaming, flying up your own exhaust pipe. Yep, that's right.
That's it, legend. That's it.
I think we're done, brother.
God bless you, brother. God bless Australia. All right. Have a great one.
To fight again for that already burned, he was driven towards the flames. All the signs are there for all to see, the signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away, like a silent choir too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.